much time do you have? Yep.
I'm fine. I got some stuff to do, but it's raining outside, so I'm good.
All right. Well, let's dive into here then. Here's our models for the different layer 1, layer 2, layer 3s.
Okay.
So I'll walk over what I was kind of thinking and then what I understand of what you're thinking, and then let you just basically do the exact same and see how they both reflect. What do you think?
Okay.
All right. Cool. So in the world that I was looking at, and this is just to really simplify it right now. I love what's emerging, but I think, we have the 3 horizons we got to think about. What's Horizon 1 versus 2 versus 3, right? Horizon 1 is what I want to speak to right now. And that's to launch 1 constant seeds. Let's do $1 US, or maybe even start it with 2 just to show the case. So maybe we do euro and dollars, whatever. And then what that looks like is saying from 0, there's no constant euros or constant dollars in circulation right now. The comment says, hey, we're creating this new token. If you would like this, you give us a dollar equivalent, and we're going to give you $1 of this constant dollar. Right? So we don't have the mint burn relationship with market seeds or Genesis seeds or anything like that for coming into constant currencies yet. I think that's something that we need to test and kind of, design a little bit more fully before we bring into the wild. All we're saying is give us your dollars right now. They're sitting in your savings accounts and doing nothing. I'm literally talking to my folks and showing them Anchor, and I'd rather be showing them this, because what we say is we're going to offset inflation and then use the remainder to, pay for operations. And that's how we start. So then dollars are coming into the commons. They're issuing constant currencies. They're using those dollars, putting them in Anchor, earning 20%, using 7% or 8 or whatever it is to pay inflation, and the other 12% funds them. So that works. And that's kind of the start. And then we set up euros or whatever, and then we have pools. So then people could start trading their seeds to their constant currencies and back and forth. And then that starts the relationship between them.
Describe what you mean by pools.
Standard exchange pools. Actually,
no, pools between which two tokens?
For both seeds euro and seeds dollars and seeds. Genesis volatile market seeds that are, either the ones that we're currently doing, or we can decide if we're going to be doing like a relaunch of seeds or something to that effect. But anyway, seeds that are in people's wallets versus the euro and USD that people have. So we literally put them on, exchanges like T-swaps or whatever, and create pools between them.
All right. Do you want some response yet?
Sure, if you're ready. So I was just talking about Horizon 1. That's kind of what I was. All
right. So let's talk about Verizon 1. Horizon 1. You had Verizon on the Discord, and I was like, Verizon. Did he mean version? You meant Horizon.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
So many typos in my comments there.
That's okay. All right. So Horizon 1. All right. So you're saying in Horizon 1, we start with the essence of creating constant seeds, and we don't create market seeds yet, what is called volatile seeds over here, and we're not yet creating L3 community seeds. We're just staying focused at the very first moment we're focusing on constant seeds. And what you're saying is that people don't know how to use a DeFi in the world, most people, and so most people don't know how to take their money, figure out how in the world to get it over into US Terra, figure out how in the world to, make Anchor protocol work and keep track of a wallet so that they could get 19.5%, which is what Anchor is currently doing. And Anchor seems like it's pretty darn likely to be around for a long time. And so you're saying, let's give people a pathway by using constant seeds. They give in, $1,000, $10,000, $100,000. We then are acting as a facilitator to move that money into US Terra, put it in Anchor protocol, because we know that that's going to produce a substantial amount of yield in excess of what the current inflation is. And then we now have this thing called a seed US, or a constant seed, out there in the world, where we're providing a service, and what we're getting is the spread between Anchor yield and inflation.
Yeah, basically, as a literal, this is what we can do today and get started. Yeah, it's a good starting point.
I understand that, and we can fold it inside of what we're calling constant seeds, and it's part of a step, a very first step launch. It's not really describing anything about what's to the right and to the left. It's just saying, hey, let's describe the center. The center's already interesting, and the center may be a vehicle where people are comfortable saying, we're not directly per se funding the work of the seeds ecosystem. We're just somebody's giving me a mechanism because I don't know how to do it myself. Somebody's giving me a mechanism to get a better savings account that will offset inflation.
And they are directly funding it because they're getting 8% instead of 20%.
So all right, but they don't need to know that.
Well, and maybe we even tell them that. I don't have any problem with that. I'm telling my folks that. Just I have one use case here where I told them,
I understand
for that because we actually want to support you in what you're doing.
No, so correct. And so
or whatever. So we're saying, hey, you want to support us in what you're doing. You got money sitting in your savings account. Park it here. This is going to support the commons in our work.
Okay, I understand that. And the question that I'm asking is that the most? It is a use case, and it is a story from sharing like what is the purpose here, but to me it's not all that inspiring of what the seeds ecosystem it is. It's saying hey, the seeds ecosystem is looking for working capital. You're looking for a way to do better than your savings account. Let's marry these two things and have as an offset some working capital.
Basically, yeah, as a starting point, of course.
Okay, so I understand that.
Engineering, how do we move forward?
Yeah, so I understand that, and I am fine with that, but it's not this model.
Well, so in a way, it's model from the user experience and their perspective, because if they come in and they buy a constant seed dollar, then it's going to be constant for them. And as this model evolves and changes, it really doesn't change their relationship with it. All we're going to be doing is adding on more capacities and possibilities for them going forward. So it's the same relationship for them. So as far as the people are concerned, they get to get started on this now. So anyway.
Right. Yeah. But the thing is that what this is really doing is it's defining the treasury management feature of the Seeds Commons. So in this picture right here, I didn't design or describe what I'm imagining would be the treasury management feature. I know Dakota's asking about that, but in that center channel.
Is it in here at all? I don't think so, huh?
No, it isn't. Okay. So the treasury management feature of the Seeds Commons has not been described. I have ideas of it. Other people in the Seeds Commons are going to have ideas of it. You've got ideas of it and so forth. What this is defining is the mechanisms of L1, L2, and L3 seeds and how they are related to each other and why they support each other. And I do say pretty frequently, if you do L1 and L2, but and L3 comes later in the storytelling, in the vision, then L1 and L2 together are financial engineering. They are the same thing as Terra. They're the same thing as whatever are the high integrity financial engineering things. And they're only high integrity if the Seeds Commons holds on to high integrity. Otherwise, they can turn very easily into, the new launch of a new token's turning into 400,000% yield if you will do this and this and press this button at just the right time. And we're going to make it so that if you come in 3 times a day and press the button within 2 seconds of each other, then you're going to get a better yield. It's just a video game of financial engineering is what most of the crypto
I'll say why I think I kind of agree, but then I strongly disagree, and I'll quickly respond why. And that's because we're using the financial engineering to redirect value flows. But where is that value going? That's the real awesome innovation that we're already working on. So, we have this, let's say we are the exact same as Luna Terra, which we're not if we're doing it this way. But anyway.
It's only when that column, that third column is where the flashlight shines. When the third column is where that flashlight shines, and that third column has grounded reality that feels like solid, that's what is really the story. The commons is also
hold on. I think that's a cool story, but I was going to explain how the other one's really the story as well.
Okay, let me hear it.
The other one is really the story of how we re-engineer nation state budgeting. because the commons, all the funding that's coming into that, the other 12% we're making on inflation, being able to mint seeds when anyone buys it, that structure is what we're testing to fund the whole ecosystem. So it's the value flows. Right now, when you're coming into Terra and Luna, VCs are getting a lot of benefit from that. And people who are already wealthy are already getting all the benefit. So we're saying, instead of the wealthy already getting all the benefit, this is a new funding model to fund regeneration and support all of these organizations and all the good work they're doing in the world. So already from the initial story, without layer 3 currencies, this is interesting. Offset inflation, support regeneration, like instead of your money having to donate and give to charities in order to support change and make the world a better place, like you're just losing, we're going to say, look, offset inflation or get a benefit and speculate with seeds or whatever it is. Both of those options are avenues to fund this ecosystem and move it forward.
I agree with you completely.
That's really interesting.
I agree with you completely.
Or we introduced L3 at all. So
all right. So, if you say we're funding regeneration, lots of people say that we're funding that they're doing regenerative things.
Totally. All of this is predicated on us demonstrating and giving people a reason to buy seeds and park their money for sure.
Right. And so if we say that the wholeness of this ecosystem, L1, L2, L3, this wholeness is being guided by the integrity and the transparency and the operations that will exist in the Seeds Commons. That's the wholeness of this story. And where we are in Horizon 1 or Horizon -1 is called the wholeness of this story is Haifa doing amazing amounts of work. That's the wholeness of the early story.
And I'm extending this out. It's not just the Seeds Commons. So the Seeds Commons is coordinating the budget. Yes, they need high integrity, but it's all the work that all these organizations are doing.
You're correct.
Social regeneration, like they're already doing it. They're tracking it. I'm seeing it all the time. Dutel's doing the same,
No, I totally agree. When I said Seeds Commons, I meant the union of Seeds Commons and all of it.
Yeah. Okay.
So sorry about that. Yes, it's all of them together.
Pedantic.
Yeah. So if I were to draw a circle around this entire thing of L1, L2, L3 and say that the Seeds ecosystem with the Seeds Commons as center and all of these communities supporting it together are holding the space for the healthy deployment of this. What does it look like when there's healthy deployment of this whole thing? And what I'm saying is that for the beginning phase, you can see, look, we got tools, we got communities, we got passion, we got people, that it's already emerging. But if it's going to sustain itself in the long run, it has to have economic flow that's coming in to support all of these activities, and the numbers and everything have to work and everything. And so what you are saying, to echo back, is that one foundational Horizon 0 path is to focus on the constant seed as an offset inflation tool that might be a convenient entry point for some people. We still need to, and they don't even need to know the whole story. And that's what I've said also. A person who is in an L3 community that just sees that, look, here are these people that have emerged together, passionate about purpose and sharing and taking care of each other and taking care of the planet and everything. I want to be part of that. All they need to know about is, how do I get some L3 seeds and how can I use them to get some food and shelter in my town? They don't need to know about constant seeds and market seeds and all this other stuff. There's an appropriate communication storytelling for each participant. And so what you're saying is that perhaps the first and most easy to understand story is offset inflation. Terry's spoken about that a lot.
Well, that's the second story, because the first story was speculate on systems change and potentially make value for effective. So that's the first story. Layer 1, speculate on systems change. If we succeed, you're going to grow in value because the currency you bought is going to grow in value and become an actual day-to-day currency when we have a new economy. So first way, speculate on systems change, Second way is, okay, that one seems ridiculous. I don't want to speculate. I don't have very much risk. Cool. Second way, offset inflation with low spec. Anyway, you get that. So that's that story. And then the third story is the community one. 3 completely different stories, almost completely different audiences some of the time, and they're going to have 3 completely different ways of going about it. So that's kind of what I'm working on here is like, okay, we've done one that's been, it's questionable how well that's done. But also because, speculation requires a lot of hype and storytelling and focusing on token value and all that stuff we didn't care to do. So we weren't really great at that story. So we came to something more grounded and said, hey, let's actually focus on this second story, which is constant seeds. It's probably a stronger story to get the funding that we need. Layer one still exists. So as we mature and foundations and people, they're like, yes, we want to support change. Cool, just buy seeds. You can speculate on systems change and you can make more money that way. If we succeed, of course, you could also lose money, right? So then that's again where the layer two story comes in. Like, what am I going to tell my parents to do? They've already bought a bunch of seeds already, but I'm not going to tell them to then put their life savings into L2, or an L1, but I would tell them to put their life savings into L2 because they're currently holding on to dollars and that's terrible. So let's offset inflation. Great. I would tell them to do this. And that's the other growth avenue, right?
We also have to, of course, recognize that
I wouldn't tell them, I would encourage them and they're asking.
Right, I understand, right. But L2 constant seeds for like, let's say you said, someone from Wall Street comes and says, I'm a great money manager. I have all these family offices that I take care of. They all love me and everything. And what I am trying to do is in a relatively safe way, make sure that your assets are growing beyond inflation. Okay. Well, if your metric is the United States dollar, many hedge funds, many mutual funds and stuff have achieved that even over long stretches of time, like decades. And that's not particularly easy for the regular person to gain access to.
Right.
So will those hedge funds and those mutual funds, even the ones that are really deliberate and well managed, will they be successful at continuing that story if the United States dollar, completely collapses? No, they won't. If we find ourselves in, 40% hyperinflation for, X number of years, they're not going to be able to do it. And so we have to be somewhat thoughtful as to the story that we say about what constant seeds are, and what we are encouraging people to sign up for. When we are selling tokens, and by selling tokens, I'm kind of meaning like a little button on a website where people can send their Bitcoin, or their money, and they get these other kinds of tokens in response. I'm not talking about regulations and all this other stuff, and whether or not the United States government or any other government in the world would call this a security token, would call it a limited partnership investment. I don't know. I'm not, claiming to have, any, expertise in that whole area. But what I am saying is that if somebody presses a button, sends us a Bitcoin, and we then emit out an appropriate number of constant seeds, then they've exchanged one token that is managed in some decentralized weirdo place using up a lot of electricity for a different set of tokens that are managed in a different way. And if we say under the hood, if you wanted to explore it, what we're doing is we're buying Anchor for you. And we believe that Anchor is going to have sufficient returns to exceed inflation, whatever that means, and that we are going to divert the balance of those returns to working capital.
Horizon one.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows how long Horizon one lasts for? Maybe it's only a few months. So this isn't a story we have to tell for multiple years. I hope not.
Right. And what if something goes wrong in the U.S. tariff space?
Exactly. And that's a concern too, which is why this is Horizon 1. I'm saying let's do this now. We do it for 6 months, and maybe Terra doesn't even last that long. We don't know. Like, it is something.
I think it is.
Now, I wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, the Terra Foundation just put $500 million. $500 million of just went back into Anchor, a week or two ago. As far as guaranteeing the Anchor interest rate. So I don't know. It certainly looked kind of dicey there for a few days, and that's why the Anchor token dropped from $4 to $1. But now the Anchor came back up because they put $500 million back into the pool. So I don't, none of us know. But right. What we're saying in the L2 space is that I like the L2 space, the constant space, to be really something that it's something more than just investing in the anchor. I understand Horizon Zero is a story that needs to be communicated. But let me just go for a second on the constant. Ignoring the fact that the SEEDS Commons collectively has a treasury, we know that the SEEDS Commons is going to be minting market tokens. That is the pathway that has been at least discussed as the way that working capital comes in. And the SEEDS Commons, through budgeting and through responsible, treasury and all that stuff, is trying to issue the minimum number of market seeds to meet its goals, to steward the health and the exponential emergence of this whole ecosystem. If it's the case that the SEEDS Commons mints the minimum possible, but we're achieving everything we want, then what would that mean for market seeds? And what would that mean for constant seeds? Well, if we've done the best job possible, and we minted the least number of market seeds possible, and we've created something of enormous value, and the price of the market seeds is somehow representative of that value, then since we've created the least number of market seeds possible, we would anticipate, because we've been successful, that the price of the market seeds would go up quite a lot. If we were not so perfectly efficient and issued more market seeds than needed, and maybe we were, we just issued more, then that would mute, to some extent, the growth in the price of market seeds, because there'd be more supply. So when the SEEDS Commons is minting market seeds, if they mint the smallest number possible, then the return to those people that bought those market seeds under success is the highest. If they mint more, then the return to those people is less. So what causes them to want to mint more than the minimum necessary? Well, one thing that you've just said, we want to be able to tell people with a straight face, we have resources to make sure that the constant seed does what we say it's going to do. It's going to be constant. And part of the reliability of that is a treasury. If you have zero treasury, then maybe you're not so good at feeling pretty solid that the constant is doing its job, that it's reliable. And so one of the things that makes the constant reliable seems to be holding on to some treasury. If you're in fact holding on to some treasury, where did it come from? Well, you minted more market seeds. That's where it came from, And so you have muted the return for the market seed participants in exchange for giving more solid clarity to the L2 center space, to the constant space. All right, that seems totally reasonable, totally fine. And this is what Dakota said, 30 to 70% of all the sales. You're saying just put all of the money that comes into Anchor and only consider the working capital, the 12% excess.
Right. I think it's so difficult because there's so many different horizons that are all happening that we're talking about. But anyway, Horizon Zero, that's the discussion we're having.
Yeah,
Do we do
I understand.
Fractional reserve or full reserve? I'm saying I wouldn't trust fractional reserve. They're way too many. They're too experimental. We don't have I just don't trust it. And I don't want my parents and anyone else to invest any more money into something with fractional reserve that could likely fail.
Yep.
That's too high of a risk. So I'm saying, let's do full reserve. We'll hold on to your capital, sit that in a treasury. You can look at it, builds confidence. Let's work on building trust for Horizon Zero.
Okay.
Once trust is built, we've built sturdier protocols, then we can start doing fractional reserve and start getting more interesting. But I see that as a question, in my opinion.
Yep. So this is speaking about the space called the Commons Treasury.
Right.
And as I said, if the SEEDS Commons Treasury starts off with minting the minimum possible, then there is no real clarity as to what the L2 reliability is, but the market seeds get the greatest return because the whole ecosystem is successful somehow.
Sure.
So now let's talk about what might cause you to want to mint more seeds. One of them is, I want to have full reserve or fractional reserve or whatever, because I want to be able to know that what's happening in the constant space has deep trust and reliability. Of course, there's a lot of steps to that, not just multi-sig and believing in Terra and all these other things. But the real integrity is holding space for that. If you're holding space for the most robust integrity for what these constant seeds are, then you've got to mint more market seeds, because you need a bigger treasury to not only good practices, auditing, whatever that looks like. So now we have really great constant seeds. That means that the increase in price value of the market seeds was muted, because we said as an ecosystem.
I want to align on something else with you then. Horizon 1, 2, and 3. Do you see in Horizon 2 and 3 layer 1 seeds becoming constant, or in your model is layer 1 seeds kind of always speculative, price appreciating currency?
Always.
Okay, so that, I think that's maybe our first area of why we're maybe not seeing fully eye to eye. Is because I've kept that model that layer 1 will reach its own constant seed. So when I hear you sometimes,
okay, all right. So let's try and bridge that, because we have a difference there.
Right. So I'd say layer 2 is still on this model. I haven't changed this. Sorry, layer 1 is still on this model. Where of course we're here in the speculation phase, but I still see this post go live moment.
I don't.
My Horizon 1 and 2, Horizon 2 is when we have go live and we're running this. I know, hold on, bear with me. Horizon 1 is when we don't have the harvest going in. Let me show you another screen to help kind of weave all this together a little bit more. I'll do a new share, of course. You see this?
No, oh yes, I see this.
So Horizon 2, who mints, new seeds as the harvest does. And Horizon 0, you're saying the commons has the ability to mint some new seeds. So we're, for the meantime, while we're still working out the harvest protocols, again, in my opinion, we're going to give that power to the commons. I actually don't think we need to do that. We have seeds set aside that the commons can use. The sale seeds, the ones that HIFA was going to get, milestones, etc. They have seeds that they can sell. And then when I think if they run out, then we can say maybe they have the ability to mint more, or we just let them have that. And then hopefully by that time we have the harvest. This again, what I'm seeing. And then the harvest is what's deciding what's minting more tokens and then giving that to the commons, and the commons just goes and sells those.
I see the harvest and the commons as unified. So I have ideas about the harvest that will become more automated as you're outlining here, but I see them as the same. And so that's a bridge that we can also cross.
Well, yeah, and I was looking at them at being different horizons. I was saying Horizon 0 lets empower the commons group to be able to do the function the harvest wants to do going forward. But that's too much power for this community, in my opinion. That ought to be a protocol. And that protocol is running to create the, let's come back to here, to create the stability of the layer 1 seeds going forward. Because in my opinion, a regenerative economy doesn't need a speculative price go up token forever. Like, it just doesn't need that, because that's a feedback loop that concentrates wealth. And it's healthy in the early stages if you're actually compensating risk. But once risk is deferred, then you're just concentrating wealth for the sake of concentrating wealth, i.e. we repeated the same financial system we currently have and it benefits the wealthy, etc. So that's why I think it's really important that layer 1 isn't, always let's go up forever. Of course, it's seeing it going up forever because this is relative to the dollar, and this is presuming that the dollar is actually losing value, and that's why
I understand
it's going up in value forever. But layer 1 is then what I see being the true, global constant currency going forward. Layer 2 still exists as being constant to dollar, constant to euro, etc. And we're offsetting those official inflations, and it could stay that way for people who want to, stay with local currencies that are non-inflationary. So that stays in the L2 system. So I see L1 volatile, all crazy Horizon 0. But once we get to Horizon 2 and 3, this is where the constancy is in layer 1 itself. And then layer 2 is just the national currency conversion to help simplify things. And layer 3 is a huge space of expansion possibilities of all sorts of community currencies.
Okay, so let's the horizons of harvest and all of that stuff I think is secondary to let's getting alignment on the market seed versus the constant seed. And maybe we can get there now, or maybe I'll go into what you're thinking, maybe you'll go into what I'm thinking, or some new hybrid that we haven't even thought about. So
space for that one. I like
Yeah.
that.
So in the original design where you had the pre-go live phase and the post-go live phase, that whole thing kind of like blurred, and we know that we had things that we are trying to make better in this new imagination. When we talk about market seeds, one of the things in the design is that there is a deep relationship between market seeds and what's happening over in L3. And if we don't hold on to that in the discussion, then it's not clear, should there be a stable, not stable, it's not clear what we're talking about. So let me describe that just ever so briefly, in that the idea of if the, and why I have this mint burn relationship. So as opposed to a liquidity pool, you could have a liquidity pool with automatic market makers, converting market seeds to constant seeds. But I'm saying we don't want that. We actually want a mint burn relationship. So if we have a mint burn relationship between them, then when capital is flowing into L1 and they burn it and move it over to L2, it just becomes, it's no longer growing and having that volatility. The capital arrived in L1 and it's living in the L1 space, doing whatever L1 space is doing, supply, demand, market characteristics. And when you step out of that and put it into L2, you're saying, I'm exchanging what was the behavior here for something that's quite well defined, offset inflation. And I can step back whenever I want. And I can go back and forth. And let's say that this mint burn is a somewhat frictionless mint burn. If it's a somewhat frictionless mint burn, then all that we need to know is when I have, if the market seed right now is, X pennies per, X dollars per market seed, I just need to know how to convert that US dollar value into however many constant seeds. And for me to know how to do that, I need to know how much time or how much inflation has passed since the beginning of constant seeds, since time zero constant seeds. If I know the amount of inflation that's passed from time zero constant seeds till now, then I can convert this pile of market seeds into burn them and mint the right number of constant seeds. So to some extent, if the constant seed didn't exist, then the people living in the market seed just they can't step off of that ride. But here they can step off, live in constant seeds for a while. And then if for some reason they wanted to step back over here, then they would step back over here and say, I want to live over here. Well, what would cause them to want to do that? What I'm saying is that they're under the hood, there is no direct way to buy constant seeds from fiat or from Bitcoin or anything else. That it may be hidden from a user experience, but every time that you're going into constant seeds, I got some Bitcoin, give me some constant seeds, you're actually buying market seeds and then burning them at whatever the market is and burning them into constant seeds. And the same on the way out. So you've got your constant seeds and you need to pay your rent. You're going to say, redeem constant seeds for US dollars through some beautiful UX experience. It's really going to be burning those constants, turning them back into markets, and exiting the market. So in some sense, what I'm saying is that the total value that has flowed into the ecosystem is represented by the sum of L1 and L2.
And the liquidity with L1. So in order
there's no liquidity in L1, there's no liquidity in L1.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So that the constant seeds aren't actually constant. Their risk factor is how much liquidity is there in L1 to exit. So there's only $100,000 in liquidity, but you have 1 million L2 seeds you want to cash out. You're not going to be able to do that.
No, then you've done a bad job of treasury management.
Sure,
because
I hear you. I'm just all right. So I want to get down to like a fundamental here, because this is where I'm really interested in. As value is coming in, where does that value flow to? In an L1 world where it's has the potential to always go up in price, then we have a potential where we have a positive feedback loop where those with the most wealth continue to get the greatest share of the pie. I have a ton of L1 seeds, and I only felt good about doing that because I felt they're going to get capped off at some point, and have a balance around, $1.50 or whatever.
This is a separate question of Genesis seeds.
Well, this is a question about anything, because if an institutional investor comes in and acquires a bunch of L1 seeds, or rich people or whatever, we're still saying we have a fundamental principle that's going to give them the lion's share of the wealth, unless we have the seeds commons who's sitting there minting more constant currencies. But then we give a lot of power to whatever this is. And then if this just mirrors what the seeds harvest is meant to do, where we have an automated protocol who's just minting new currencies, then we're kind of going full circle back to the same model. So then I'm agreeing with you. It's kind of the same way, and it's just a different way of going about it. And then all that really matters is, what's the most compelling story? What's the most easy to understand story? Because if it's just two different ways of accomplishing the same thing, essentially, which way makes the most sense to do it?
Okay, so what grounded me in this is the seed index L3 story.
So then explain that more and how this fits into the whole picture, so I could.
Yeah, because I agree with you completely in what you just said. So if we say value is flowing into L1, what causes someone want to buy market seeds? Value is flowing, sometimes moving over into L2 because they want to exchange that behavior for this behavior. And we've already said that the seeds commons, the aggregate, whether it's called harvest, seeds commons, whatever, however that's implemented in integrity and transparency, is a process, a protocol for minting more seeds. And if you mint very few new seeds, then the price of L1 goes up a lot, and the rich people who bought all the L1 seeds get all the rewards. If you mint more seeds because you want more strength in the whole ecosystem, like for instance, to be fully backed in whatever tranches in the center section, then that is muting. It's reducing the reward to the market seeds. So that is the game so far. So now let's go over into L3 space.
All right. So then if we do that, and we already have the protocols to do that in the current model, and that is, what is inflation? So if inflation's set to 0 in the layer 1 side, then we're minting new seeds anytime the price goes above the inflation rate. So we're actually continuing to mint it just to say inflation is 0. If we say inflation is -5%, then we're saying we actually want them to increase in value by 5%. So we can actually fix that. So in the protocols we've already built, if we kind of stick with the same model that I was proposing, we can adjust that. And we could say, actually, we want layer 1s to be appreciating in value because that's going to attract more people to come to them, and we can have a nice, strong investment vehicle. Great. Let's set inflation in -7%. That's just a setting that we can adjust. If we want them to be a constant currency and completely eliminate, and at some future point, the benefit of layer 2 completely, and we're like, hey, we actually don't even need that, then we can do that. There's a potential there.
So all right, so let me tell you this.
That we can use the current settings, but if we don't follow that same model, we're gonna have to build entirely new protocols. So
I understand what you're saying there. Let's say every single time somebody bought market seeds, every time they were buying them from the seeds commons. If you're buying market seeds from somebody that already has market seeds, it's kind of a no-op. It's kind of like nothing happened. They used to be in this person's wallet, now they're in this person's wallet, and they exchange some money on the side or some tomatoes, So if people are exchanging market seeds with each other, it doesn't impact the ecosystem from an economic direct way if we ignore the harvest feedback loop. So let's say every time someone buys L1 market seeds, they're buying them from the seeds commons for this discussion. The seeds commons gets that money, and then they immediately burn them to make L2 seeds so that there are no L1 seeds, okay? So everybody is always buying them only for the purpose of coming into L2. This is kind of like what you said, Horizon 0 as a starting point. So they're buying them to come into L2. The seeds commons has issued the exact number of L2 seeds at that point, because the mint burn, I said, is near frictionless. They've issued the exact number of L2 seeds that equals their treasury if they haven't spent anything. And then if they take all of that money in full reserve and put it into Anchor, and Anchor is producing 19.5%, and inflation is 8%, then they have that extra 11.5, 12% that is not part of guaranteeing feeling fully backed. They have this extra. So they have kind of like two treasury pools. One that is about feeling fully backed for the L2, and the other is just extra money. Well, that
Okay,
extra
like
money.
this is the middle way I hear coming together,
Yeah.
right? So we have everything come through layer one anyway, right? And then the seeds commons can sell seeds directly. And if people hold on to those seeds, perfect. That's just extra working capital. It's the same model as buying seeds from the commons as we have today. Or they can take those seeds, burn them, and get a constant currency, right?
Yep.
And if
And when
those
they get a constant
burn,
currency, when they burn their market seeds and turn it into a constant currency, that statement itself says to the seeds commons, if we have a protocol that says we're fully backed, I better put some money in the fully backed pool.
that's what I would see as the middle way right now, Horizon Zero, is to do that. If you want to hold on to seeds, you're taking on that speculative risk. There's an upside potential greater than offsetting inflation, et cetera. That story exists. That's a better way of funding the commons because they get to spend that money outright. So it's a more effective way of funding the commons, right? More risk, more reward, more effective to fund the commons. Or you can burn them, get the constant currency, and then the commons is going to use the remainder of the interest to fund operations.
So let's say everybody in the market space moved over.
That full reserve point is something really great because again, story, trust, narrative.
Right.
And if that full reserve is building, then we get to say we're holding on to all these assets, and that number keeps getting.
All right. So now I need you to answer this question.
A treasury,
so,
you know,
people buy $1 million comes in to market seeds. Okay. So there's $1 million in the treasury, and it's all sitting in market seeds. And then half of it says, you know, I kind of like the current level. I want to switch over to L2. So they burn half it. So half of the market seeds suddenly burn into L2s. Then as long as the commons hasn't spent any money, no problem. Push this over into the fully backed pool called L2. And then the commons start spending some money.
Right. So now they don't have the capacity to be full reserve. Right.
Correct.
And this is where it comes back to the model I was proposing, where we don't have the mint burn relationship.
Right.
So
all right.
There's only one way to come in, then we don't have that issue. So that didn't exist in the model I was proposing.
Right.
However, if we are merging these, let's figure out if there's an interesting way to overcome this. And I think you might have one. So anyway.
Right. So by knowing, so let's say now the market seeds price goes up huge. What caused that to happen? Well, people, the Seeds Commons website.
If people bought 1 million of them, it went up anyway. So in your scenario already, if someone came in with $1 million to buy a bunch of seeds for this to be even a concern that we have, the price did go up.
No, not if the Seeds Commons sold all $1 million worth at the same price.
Why is the Seeds Commons doing that?
Because the Seeds Commons is in control of buyseeds.earth.
Right, but even that protocol, it has the tick up every.
Doesn't have to. It could not. I mean, I don't know.
I would say they maintain that. So anyway, the price went up because we were selling seeds because the model is very simple: increase demand, increase in price. So anyway.
Okay, all right. So let's see if we can ground over in the seeds index because that'll make this conversation much more multidimensional. All right. Let's say that we have a pilot project on a remote island that wants to use Rainbow L3 currency, whatever it's called. And what are they getting? They're getting tools that we built a lot of stuff. Maybe they're getting beautiful templates that have been proven to be really successful and guidance and so forth. And they come into existence. In my mind, they have the ability to mint their own L3 token. Okay, but we want to give them guidance of best practices. And so my thinking about it is that every L3 token gets emitted in that island, that hidden island. Every L3 token gets emitted under the guidance of the Elder Council of that island. And the Elder Council says, we mint tokens in response to resources contributed. So if you want to work in the garden today, then you're going to get some tokens. If you've got some land over here that for whatever reason you own it because of some historic legacy, and you're the one that owns that land for some reason, and you want to make that land part of the community, then contribute that land, and we're going to honor that by giving some L3 tokens. Whatever it is that we as a community decide are the things of value. And as I said, it could be you smiled and breathe today, and so you're going to get some L3 tokens. You have some really creative indigenous understanding of water on our island. You know, you're going to get some L3 tokens, whatever it is, but the community decides. And let's say, as a side effect of the tools that we provided, it becomes a vibrant circular community, and it is better than if they hadn't done this. So the resources are being contributed, the tokens are being issued in response to those resources, and you could look at it and say, the sum total of all those L3 seeds in that community is valuable. They've done something that is in alignment with the SEEDS Constitution. They have more carbon in the ground. They have more music festivals. They have more love, whatever it is that gets measured in that community. And they have circular. But let's say that we have a template, a dashboard of the standard metrics that we like to observe. Thrivability metrics. It comes out of Analos's work and R3 and all this other stuff. And we say, you can be any community you want, but our best practices are support these interfaces for these metrics. And our best practices, and when you do that, we'd like to invite you at your choice, at your discretion, would like to invite you to make your community visible in the world. And when you make your community visible in the world, there's now a SEEDS website. Look at all of the communities. Look at all of the communities around the world. And so then no longer is it an island that's just hidden, but rather it's actually a dashboard. And you can click on all the different communities, just like that, exactly. You can click on all of them, you can see them all. And you might look at them and say, I wish they would tell me what made themselves so successful. So we're going to give them the ability to post videos and stories and their own, what they've found as their own best practices, and they're excited about it. And because of the work that they've done, and their willingness to they benefited from that. We gave them templates and frameworks, and we gave them tools and so forth. But because of their willingness to share their experiences, then they are now doing something back for the ecosystem called inspiring. And those communities that are doing feeds of what's happening in their village and all that stuff are more inspiring than those that never tell anybody anything about what they're doing. And when some community invents something that none of us have ever thought of that just makes it even better, they want to shout from the top of the mountain. So, and we want to shine a flashlight on the full SEEDS ecosystem. Look at that great community. What an amazing invention. Maybe other people want to learn about this too. So if we now look at that singular mushroom called this island, this L3 community, and we say, what's its value? And let's say we turn that into a number. It's a scorecard. It's a thrivability metrics. It's a regenerative outcomes. It's a something, but it's eventually a number.
We do need to do this. I'm going to weave it full circle here because I want to see if we're on the same page here. That number is actually what we're using if we keep the seeds harvest going forward to give local regions, i.e. L3, they already exist here, part of the inflation. So we do need that number. We need to know that number in order to know how much of the inflation they're getting. So this was already an effort, is what is their contribution score, which is their number. What is their contribution to regeneration?
Right.
That's how communities are getting it. And then I want to connect here so that we're all seeing it together. Hold on, one more share. When you're talking about L3 currencies, we have that ability, right? Well, we will when we launch this DAO tooling.
Exactly. It's a native currency in the DAO.
It's the native. There we go. So what it looks
right,
like,
and that's why I have been moving in my brain.
I just want to show this because some people might watch this, and I think I might actually share a clip of this because it's great. So I'll just show it to you. Is you come in here and you're actually saying, hey, I'm going to do a one-time activity. Let's call it an expense. We'll go through and I will say, I've contributed land. Here's the land. Here's me like literally sending it to the community. It's worth, this is where you're going to put in how much it's worth. It's worth $100,000. So anyway, HUSD is Haifa's community's L3 currency, right? This L3 currency then can be minted and distributed and all that fun stuff using the do tools right here, right? Yeah. Okay. So we're on the same page.
We're on the same page there. So now, I think it's going to evolve a little bit. All right. So now we have a number, and somehow this number is representative of the overall health and thrivability of that community. Now, if nobody ever leaves that island, and nobody ever goes to that island, and they don't need to exchange goods or services with any other island, any place in the world, they're fully self-sufficient. But if somebody, maybe I've lived on the island and I've been a plumber for the last 2 years and I've done wonderful things for the community, and I have a certain number of our L3 community tokens, but I'm moving to San Francisco because, you know, I want to be a street poet, you know, and I'd like to take the value with me because it might help me land in San Francisco. That is a liquidity pool bridge. That is a pool that is going to be 2 tokens, the constant L2, and this local L3 community token. If I want to leave, I have to cross the bridge. If there's no bridge or a very, very tiny bridge, then maybe I can tiptoe across it. But if there's a bigger bridge, I could ride a bike. And if there's an even bigger bridge, I could drive a truck.
And this is where Chuck's tooling is, where you actually get to say how much people can exit and all of that. You can set those parameters. You can say, well, we have a small bridge, so people can only exit, you know, $10 worth a day or whatever it is. And you can
absolutely,
you can meter how many cars can cross the bridge, so to speak, to make sure the bridge doesn't collapse.
Correct. And so the bridge is an automated market maker or whatever tool set people want to put in there. And it's a liquidity bridge. And if somebody says, you know, I am totally in love with the work that's happening in this village. They are the best soccer team on the planet. You know, I want to thank them for being what they are. Well, one way that they can thank them is they can build them a bigger bridge. What's that? What does that look like? So I'm a guy sitting in, you know, wherever.
Hold on, it's not just thanking them. There could be some self-serving portion because every bridge likely has a toll. And if you're building that bridge and making it stronger, you get a part of that toll, i.e. we call these exchange fees. So every pool exchanging fees, people can make money.
I understand the exchange
fees. So it's not
fees.
just, I love this community. That's a great drive, but it's also this community is doing a lot of great things. They're really active. I can make money by helping support their bridge.
So all right, so we'll get to that when we talk about staking and bonding. Yeah. But I really want to support this community. I want them to be, and so what I'm saying is on the dashboard, one of those metrics is strength of bridge. So if I have 2 identical islands that are doing exactly the same thing, but one has no bridge and one has a huge bridge, then that one with the huge bridge is a better contributor to our overall ecosystem. It's more important. They're sharing their stories. They're inspiring. And the one that doesn't have any bridge at all can be doing wonderful work and wonderful stuff, but they're not as strong, okay? So there's a first question that needs to be asked. Suppose I'm someone on the outside world and I want to somehow thank the people inside this community for what they're doing. I want to support their work. Can I go to that community and say, I'd like to make a contribution proposal to your community. My contribution proposal is, here's $1,000. Right now, you guys get to decide. You know that you're issuing L3 tokens for your community for someone working in the garden or somebody playing the lute at the music festival. But I don't know if you're issuing any L3 tokens to someone that just gives you money.
Again, happens right here. If you want to do that, you can have your roles, recurring activity, filling a role. All of these things are then issuing new tokens in your community. So anyway, you can actually say what people is doing, and then let's go.
That's interior to the community, but I'm talking about someone from the outside.
Oh, okay, yeah. Go on.
Someone from the outside says, I've been watching your videos. I love what you're doing. I'm inspired. You've made my life more joyful. I want to give you $1,000. Would you accept it? And maybe I'm giving it with and I don't want anything, or maybe I'm giving it and I would like to get some L3 tokens. Would you give me some L3 tokens for this? That's a decision for the local community to decide. And let's say the local community says, yes, we'll take your $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, and we're going to give you this number of L3 tokens in our community. And then, of course, the community has now this treasury of this Bitcoin that they can decide what to do with. But now I have some L3 tokens, and I'm not even in the community. I'm on the outside. And so I can partner them with L2 tokens and put them in that bridge there. And now that community is somehow a little bit stronger because now they have a little bit more liquidity in their bridge. And if this becomes kind of voting, this is the United Planet soccer team thing, you know, and you can see which communities have great bridges and which communities, you know, need bridges and they're so inspiring. What's the featured community of the year, of the day that's looking for a bridge, you know, whatever. Then people can just do it as long as we make it trivially easy. You press 3 buttons and you're done. It has to be really easy and make it fun. Then people are kind of voting with their resources that are on the outside to contribute to support the resources on the inside. And so one metric that I'm saying is real important is that bridge itself. Now, if I put $1 million on the bridge to some island, and then the metrics, say, wow, look at that, and then one day later I withdraw it, it wasn't really all that helpful. So there really is value in commitment. And so we're going to want to say through staking, through bonding and so forth, that you in fact are thanked by the community by the issuance of additional L3 tokens in some kind of a template, best practices framework or whatever, where you say, if you buy those L3 tokens from us and you put them on the bridge, that's helpful. And if you agree to keep them there for 21 days, for 21 months, for 21 years, whatever, you are going to be rewarded by an emission of additional L3 tokens. They can't issue liquidity bridge tokens because they don't have L2s, but they can issue new L3 tokens. And so balancing this all off is a mathematical game to keep everything in balance. But now we have on the dashboard, the number that's representing the thrivability of the community includes circulation in the community, happiness, all the measurements that you can make, but also the size of the bridge and the amount that is staked for what durations and everything. Those all turn into numbers. And a stronger community has higher, bigger numbers. So now, even though there's so much in there, let's just say a community now has a number that represents its mass, its impact in the world. You could imagine a community that's organized in exactly the same way, but their purpose is called build thrivability and joyful festivals and carbon in the ground and healthy food for everybody. And you can imagine a different community where their purpose, and they're equally passionate and they're equally well organized and they collaborate and they're amazing, but their unique purpose is to get all the coal out from that mountain. That's their purpose. Well, that community is not in alignment with the SEEDS Constitution very well. And when they tell their stories on the, we just got an extra 400 gigatons of coal out of this mountain, how great it is, people in the SEEDS ecosystem might not really want to fund their bridge or buy their tokens and stuff like that. There's nothing about these rules.
If we keep the harvest kind of designed, so going back here, it's just about aligning incentives. So this is where this indicator becomes so important. Because if they're pulling out all that coal, then they're probably degenerative, meaning they're going to get zero. So they're not going to be getting any reward. But what we've done is we've actually set up for that community and said, hey, if you start being more regenerative, you can earn more money. Mm-hmm. So that's all we want to do is set up and align those incentives to keep that.
Right. I agree. This is the balancing of the incentive. So now imagine we have a dashboard that lists the first 12 pilots. And through these first 12 pilots, we really try and build templates and frameworks that are thoughtful and are reasonable. They're not going to be good right away. They're not going to be perfect, but they'll get better and better. And working with the R3, I've got a meeting with them set up next week. They want to use SEEDS HYPA as a case study in their new R3.8 blueprint. It's going to get better and better.
I want to bring them into the Regen Civics Alliance, and then
absolutely
their indicators to do exactly this. We need to start tracking what is local regeneration. They've been doing that. Perfect. Let's weave them in.
Yeah, anyway, exactly. So now we have numbers. We have the first 12 pilots. We learn a lot. And we got numbers for them. And we put them up on the website, and people can see them. And one of those numbers, when you click on it, you can see the size of their bridge. You can see how much is staked for what length of time and stuff like that. And this now, the bigger the bridge, the easier it is for people to have confidence in that L3 community, because they know if they go to that island and they work for a year and then they want to leave and go over back to some other island, they have a pathway to the L2 space, which then gives them a pathway to join someplace
all right,
else.
So this is where I want to talk about Horizon, maybe even 2, not even 3, is L2 doesn't exist. L1 is constant, and we have L3. So we have community currencies and we have SEEDS as a global currency, and we're not even talking about dollars, euros, or any of that anymore. So this is where I see it kind of forming, is we get rid of that middle layer, which is really just, it's training wheels. It's bootstrapping this ecosystem, right? It's helping people associate value for what the dollar is in euro and all that nonsense we need to do. All right, so that's where I'm seeing it actually evolving.
And I see that as the same horizon point, because let's say currencies completely fall apart. Then what does it mean to trade an L1 market token for US dollars? I don't even know what US dollars are anymore, you know?
Exactly.
But I do, and so the mint burn relationship falls apart because we don't even know what these currencies
So
are.
that's why I'm even proposing we don't even set it up to begin with, because we'll build a protocol that if we could achieve it with our current protocols that align with Horizon 2.
So you're seeing that as a simpler design, and I'm seeing that as a more complicated design. So we'll reconcile
Depends on
that.
what horizon you're looking at then. It's
correct, yeah. All right, so now we have the L3 space, and we have all of these metrics, and yes, it's only 12, initially, but then it's 5,000 different communities because it's just really exponentially taking off. The multi-tenancy do forms the elder guidance commons of their communities, all of that stuff. So now, how is the market seed related to everything that's happening on the ground? Because if we don't connect them in some way that is meaningful, then we miss out on what this new design really is. So what I'm saying is that there actually is this token that we are going to define called a SEEDS index token. And the SEEDS index token, ignore the math for a second, is the sum of all of those numbers for every L3 community. And that's what the SEEDS index token is. Yes, there's going to have to be weighting and there's going to have to be some math in there. But when you have a SEEDS index token in your wallet, what you have is it's a mutual fund. It's a token that represents the sum impact of the entire planet of all of these communities. That's what the SEEDS index token is. And so if you buy a SEEDS index token, and there's 5,000 communities, and later on there's 10,000 communities, then the value of your SEEDS index token in relationship to constants, in relationship to US dollars or whatever, is going up. Okay? And what I want to say, and there's math in here, is that the SEEDS index token is through a button. If you own the SEEDS index token, through a button, it's redeemable for all the individual L3 SEEDS individual currencies. Okay, so if you have a SEEDS index token and you press a button called redeem, it's not that you're getting airdrops because you have it. You press a button called redeem, and that burns your SEEDS index token, and what you find in your wallet is L3 currencies from all over the place. Now, we don't want people to have 5,000, 10,000 different tokens in their wallets, but it's going to be maybe 10 or 15 as a proxy.
Well,
okay?
Or we have 5,000, and that's actually a benefit because we don't necessarily want people burning their index. We just want the confidence that they can. But
correct.
The annoyance
correct.
of actually doing it and then having 3,000 different currencies. Probably
right, so again, those are the details, but that's exactly right. You said the exact thing. It's not, I don't anticipate people pressing that button very often. But it's the fact that they can.
Sure.
Okay, so now we have a SEEDS index token here, and again, there's weighting factors, there's scaling factors and stuff, but conceptually, if I have the SEEDS index token, it is representing the health and the growth and the thrivability and the impact of everything that's happening in the sum of all L3 communities. What I want to say is that if you have an L1 market token, there's a button you can press called burn it and replace it with a newly minted L3 SEEDS index token. That the market token equals, with a scaling factor, the market token equals the SEEDS index token. That's why you buy the market token. The market token is mint burnable into the constant, true. But
yes,
the market token,
I'm curious if it's a token, sure, but is this a token that you can actually buy, own, exchange, it's in pools, or is that just SEEDS itself? So we have this other index tracker, a token, but it's not a token like I can send, receive it, and buy it and trade it and even redeem it. Rather,
nope, it is non-transferable. It's only transferable in its relationship back to L1. L1 is a transferable token.
Right.
And if people want to use L1 to buy coffee, they can. They can do whatever they want with their L1s. But they can burn, just like they can burn L1s and get constants, and now they're in that space called constant. They can burn L1 and get the SEEDS index token. Why is that important?
Yeah.
Because okay. let's say that the L1 token is somehow there's a whole bunch of supply came on the market and the price is going down and everything like that, and somebody says, hey, I'm going to buy some L1 market tokens at a low price now because I think that they are no longer connected to the SEEDS index. They have moved away from reality. Reality is the ground, it's the soil. And they've moved away just from supply and demand. Then the people are going to buy it at a low price, and they don't even have to burn it and mint it over into the L3 SEEDS index unless they want to, but they are going to buy them and know that they're buying them at a cheap price because they've got a horizon point called the SEEDS index.
So this is interesting because this could be an evolution where we're setting that inflation rate for the seeds harvest, i.e. how many new seeds are going to be put into layer 1. We can have that connected to the index. So we're saying if we're being more regenerative, our regeneration is improving and growing, our economy that's subsuming into that is growing as well, we're going to mint new layer 1 tokens to flow through the ecosystem, right? Yep. So I see why that index is really important. It just in the seeds up until now, that index is just it's all of our basically data points that we're tracking across all the contribution scores. So we're trying to actually bring that into one number and have that be the index. And then it'd be interesting because the next steps for IFA is creating more index tokens. So we can approach institutions and say, hey, you want a low risk way of funding systems change? Great, buy this index token. SEEDS serves that same story too. And so will Constant Seeds. So we're giving them a whole bunch of different avenues to be able to come in here and, depending on their risk tolerance and what they're trying to achieve, be able to start funding this.
So now we're getting there. We're on the same page. Yep. And to me, in my brain, making these things explicit with behavior. What's the behavior of market seeds? What's the behavior of constant seeds? What's the behavior of the SEEDS index? What's the storytelling and the metrics and the dashboard among each of these communities? That making each of these things kind of separate and explicit for me helps,
So what I would love to see here then is a 4th column index. And do the exact same thing we've done with all of these. And maybe that's the one that wraps them all together. So maybe it's actually above, and we can have L3 and it connect back down to L1 and show them all connected.
That's in some of the drawings. It's just not in this one drawing.
Oh, okay. Well, then I haven't seen
and the left-hand side, that's an old drawing. The left-hand, right-hand arrows between L1 and L2 were replaced by a mint burn bridge instead of a pool. So now,
and please send me that one.
Joachim has it, or it might be on paper. I've seen, yeah. So now let's go back to this minting of L1 tokens, minting of market tokens. We said at the now that we've had this kind of more bringing in a full circle kind of stuff. Let's now go back and look at the story of minting L1 tokens. If we minted the minimum number of L1 tokens, like we said before, so that there's really not that much in the market, liquidity availability, then if market tokens equal in some sense the SEEDS index, again, through scaling and weighting factors equals that, then if all of a sudden we go from 12 to 12,000 communities like in a blink of an eye, then the L1 token went up in price massive. And let's say nobody even bought any L2 tokens, okay? So all of the value, all of the reward that's been created has been now concentrated to the wealthy, those people that bought the L1 tokens, that had those
No, but no world is that true. Because if we went from 12 to 12,000, go live definitely would have happened, and we've been minting.
No. I'm living outside the go live space.
Living in a fantasy, so we don't even need to explore that.
Let me stay out of the go live space for a little bit longer, because go live doesn't exist in my world. But maybe it does, but we'll get there. So we already said that one of the things that causes the center, the heart, the commons, whatever that is, to want to mint more L1 seeds is to build the health of the ecosystem. Sure. So the more L1 seeds, market seeds that are burned and turned into constant seeds, the more we feel that there's value to have a treasury to kind of give it integrity to that statement, and maybe even fully backed at the beginning, And so the more that lives in the L2 space, the more we have to mint some excess L1 tokens. And so that is now muting a little bit the growth of the L1. Now, if someone's buying market tokens, they could be buying them for a hybrid set of reasons. And two such reasons are, one, I think they're going to go up in price a lot, and I love making 100Xs because I just like it, That's one motivation. Another motivation is, I got kids and the planet's not going to be here, and this community seems to be focused on saving the planet. So you're telling me if I buy L1 tokens, the planet is going to be improved? That's a second benefit that I get from buying L1 tokens. And there's probably a hybrid of a whole bunch of other reasons that people would do it. So now, what else would cause you to mint L1 tokens? Well, we've said that that the Seeds Commons, the heart, may need to build a treasury to support, for instance, the constant as a fully backed or partially backed. There's another thing that causes them to want to increase to mint more L1 tokens, and that is to support directly regenerative things. If they have a treasury, and ignore how the decisions are made in protocols or this or that, if they have a bigger treasury, then they have more capacity to support new islands that are coming on, to add to bridges, to be part of this whole design. And so the question is that they say, okay, well, let's mint some extra L1 tokens. We're muting the return from the L1 space and redirecting it to the sum of the seeds index space, to the sum of that. And we're doing it by, you're an island that has never heard of us, and you're coming to us and asking for a grant, and you'd like us to set up a bridge for you and give some stuff. Well, guess what? We have some money in the Harvest Treasury that we are now going to allocate to this project. It used to be called campaigns, and now it's called something else, And so where does that money come from? It comes from minting more L1 tokens, right, not from thin air.
So then I'm saying this is the horizons. I would agree with you if you agree with my Horizon 2. Horizon 1 is empower the Seeds Commons to do this because it's more practical and we can get going so that they have the ability to mint tokens. And we have a nice way of making sure that still stays decentralized, and that's the whole point of the roundtable and the seasons and all that stuff. So what are, Seeds Commons actually minting seeds to do? To fuel the seeds ecosystem that we see right here. So each season we come around, all the different organizations are like, hey, this is what we'd like to do next season. We need $100,000 worth of, operating capital to do it. Seeds Commons are like, all right, well, then we can mint $100,000 worth of seeds, sell them on the market, and then fund you guys to do what you need to do. So that could be, Horizon 1. That's what's operating. The Commons is empowered to mint new tokens. That's the harvest, and it's, nascent form. What I'm looking at to be Horizon 2 is where we evolve beyond that. And that's where this whole model comes in, where we do have the original harvest as described before. That's then minting the new tokens. Then 20% is going to come to the Commons. And then the Commons has a fixed budget. They go, okay, we have 20%. That's worth 200 million or whatever it is. This is what we have to run the next season. They know exactly how much they have. And then the same thing with communities and all the little regions that are getting paid out. They know how much they just got in the harvest, and same thing with the businesses and everyone on the platform. So that's the new model kind of taking it over for Horizon 2. And then who knows what Horizon 3 looks like, because it will likely evolve from this.
So let's speak about this Horizon, the Horizon Bootstraps. If we try and map it back to the original tokenomics design in our thought for a little and see what we learn, the Horizon Bootstrap was, we defined a lot of stuff. We were issuing tokens on buyseeds.earth for people to buy. They were called milestone tokens, but they were tokens. We issued seeds out there for campaigns and so forth, and we learned a lot from that whole experience. If the new experience goes over and says, look, we're going to be minting tokens for the purposes of the health of the whole, meaning and we're also going to be issuing the constant so that it has its role in this. We now have failed to include the real story of the L3s. Now, I'm not saying that we have the money to fund L3s, but no, we don't need any money to fund L3s. Each L3 is self-funded from their own resources. When a DO comes into existence, the DO comes into existence with a passionate purpose, an enrolling, welcoming invitation to the community, and their collaborative rule set as to what mints their tokens. And we need to have them. This is what you're doing with the 12 experiments, and I've hear all kinds of other things happening. Permators, Vilcabamba, everywhere else. We want these guys. That's the ground. And if we tell the story of the ground, this is what you can be if you want to be a ground. And we tell the story of L1 tokens and L2 tokens without telling the story of the ground. I think we've missed the opportunity if we don't do that.
Yeah, and in my world, they're already completely connected. So I'll come back to this just because why not? Here's our ecosystem. So again, when we're minting L2 tokens and selling them, or sorry, L1 tokens, and actually, I don't even think the commons should have the power to mint. Just we're being pedantic here. I think the seeds commons should just be empowered to spend the seeds that already exist, that are in pools that need to be sold. So let's just do that, and we don't need to mint new tokens necessarily.
Let's add to the agenda the G seeds is what I'm calling them now, Genesis seeds.
Sure. All right. But anyway, again, without layer 3 even existing, it still works really well because all the money coming into the ecosystem is then flowing through this coordination mechanism to all the projects who are doing the real impact. So Regen Civics is representing all those projects on the ground doing regenerative villages and all that stuff. Cool. If we really value this one, let's send more seeds to this one. And that's the commons coordinating mechanism, or the more value rather. Facilitation and nurturing. If people are really appreciating all the free education that's happening within the seeds ecosystem, great, keep funding it. If everyone's appreciating all the festivals and events and everything else that's happening, good, keep funding it. If you appreciate all the story and the communication, good, keep funding it. Application. So all of this is the real value that's being generated, represented in each of these organs. And the L1 and L2 is what's kind of funding all of this and providing operational capital for all of this. Now, each one of these organizations could also start creating their own L3 currencies. Likely that might not happen here. Maybe it will, but most it's going to happen within this kind of organ, which then fractals down. And that's all the land-based projects that are creating their own local circular economies. And that's the L3 story and why that comes alive. But I'm already saying it's the L1, L2 is really connected to real impact already, as it should be. Otherwise, what the hell are we doing?
Right.
So.
I agree with you. I was advocating for a while, and Joachim kind of moved me away from it, that the Seeds Commons itself is an L3 community. It's like, what is, after all, an L3 community? What does that even mean? And we put together, or I think it was John Love put together, kind of like what it felt like to be an L3 community. Any single human being is part of an L3 community if they have some of their tokens. That's kind of like you're all right. And so I can be.
So here's what I would say. There's just definitions here. And I think this will be helpful for us to align on. Is each DAO has 2 types of tokens they can mint: a payment token and then their utility token. So Haifa has Haifa and HUSD. HUSD, that payment token, is what I'm considering as an L3. So that's what I see as like we're creating a circular economy. We're doing payments and we use this token. Different from this is our utility token, our access token, maybe an equity token, whatever else it looks like, that almost every organization will have. I don't know if the Commons has an equity token, but absolutely, the Do Tell Circle or Mom Do or Regen Civics, all of those are planning on having their own equity token. So are you saying, or equity-like, utility-like, it's an access token, it's representing, contributing to that community, and this is how people can show up, add value to that DAO and be like, great, you're going to get some Regen Civics tokens, you're going to get some Haifa tokens, right? Do you see Haifa and Regen Civics tokens being L3 tokens, or just the, HUSDs and HEuros and the like that communities mint?
Well,
I think maybe this distinction is where we're having
this distinction is really important. I see the existence of the HUSD token as a temporary bridge, and that there should only be a native token. We're not there right now, obviously, in Haifa, but that's what I think. That having a payment token and having this utility token, if you keep them as 2 separate tokens and you have like some kind of an exchange pool between them, they eventually could be merged into a single token.
I strongly disagree with that.
Okay.
keeping them separate allows a community to have operational capital and to continue to mint, equity, for example. So if a community, a business, every business, Apple, for example, they have, their HUSD backed by their 100 billion or whatever they're holding on to, but they also have Apple stock. They broke because they stopped giving Apple stock out to contributors. The CEO, Tim Cook, made a fraction of the value that he oversaw making for Apple. That's giving him way too much credit. But the reality is all of those Apple employees didn't get equity in the company because they're just getting paid. So that's what happens when you only do one. The other side is just as perverse, where you can only pay in equity tokens. You don't get to control the price of your thing, and you create this game where everyone just wants to sell out. So having both of them creates a really healthy balance that I think.
I agree that both of them serve a different purpose from each other, and they can have a dynamic swap pool, like what's the price of Apple stock against US dollars. So I understand that. I'm not sure if in an L3 community, I see that need for the two tokens, but I'm open to it,
For L3 circular economies, I don't think but maybe. So this is what some communities are.
I know, it's interesting.
Is you have an equity in this village, which every business in that village has a share of that. So we have an index token for this village, which is that utility token. But we also have an L3 payments token that we use for circulating value in our community.
Yeah,
so we have kind of both, ownership of the community and payments.
I have space for both, definitely. One of the things when I was proposing that one of the things that is important for an L3 community is, a deep alliance with the SEEDS Constitution as purpose, a trusted space. And so I was beginning to say, any group of people, whether they are in proximity to each other or not, could become an L3 community. So it's called an Apple company, it's called, Haifa or whatever. And Joachim helped me think about this,
sorry, I keep interrupting just to paint the big picture.
Okay.
But any L3 could just be any DAO. Any DAO that launches a token could choose to join the L3 world, whatever that means.
Of course, right. And that's what I was suggesting to Joachim. And he said that he didn't see it that way. He saw that every DAO that creates native tokens and payment tokens and stuff is part of the Haifa ecosystem. And communities that are in the SEEDS ecosystem are not necessarily in the Haifa community. They can be in the Haifa ecosystem. They can be in both, but that we want to define what the SEEDS community is connected to the ground more, connected to the local soil more, to the local wisdom, the local traditions more. And I began to move more that direction, because I had originally said, well, the SEEDS Commons can be issue its own L3 token, and they're going to be a due, and so forth. And so one that John Love asked about, he said, well, there's a whole community of people that have boats and sail around the world, and they have purpose and they have understanding of each other. Or here in the United States, the people that wander around the world in RVs and, and Confederate flags and put them up, and stay everywhere.
So here's a design principle, and I want to align on this. There's two different ways to go about creating a system, if I'm super complicating this. One is to create barriers. The other one is to create incentives. So what I'm hearing over here is, let's create barriers. Let's say, nope, you're part of this. Let's say you're part of that, or whatever. What I'm saying is, let's actually just create the incentives. Anyone can be part of L3, but in order to do that, why are you doing that? Well, you're only doing that because there might be a benefit. Well, how do you get that benefit? And that's, again, where the regenerative index comes in. So if you are
absolutely
on the ground being regenerative, you have an incentive to join.
That's why the earlier discussion.
Then you probably don't have an incentive to join. And why would you? Yeah, you can join, but you're probably not going to get all the benefits. So what's the point?
Right, because that's where I said this dashboard where you have a glossary, an index, a listing of all of the SEEDS communities, all of these L3 communities. You have a listing there, and people can see, and people have a button, like, I want to add to the bridge. I can see what they're doing. I read their stories. That's what it means. But there's one other part that I didn't tell you about the SEEDS index. We have all of these SEEDS communities, little mushroom islands, and they're all doing wonderful things, and people see them, and some are really strong and hugely impactful, and some are just starting out. And somebody decides to press the button called burn my seeds index token and give me a whole bunch of L3 tokens. Where do they come from, and what resource was contributed to that L3 community in that is deserving of the minting of these L3 tokens? I mean, if pressing that button causes the minting of individual L3 tokens, what did the community get? And I see this as part of the wholeness of the whole thing. Let's say when you press the button, you get 50 tokens max, something manageable. You don't get 5,000 or 5 million. You get 50 tokens max. Well, which tokens are they? They're kind of like block producers. They're kind of like the strongest ones out there. But they're weighted and normalized so that it totals up to the whole. Just like when you take somebody out of the S&P 500 and you put somebody else into the S&P 500, they get weighted so that the wholeness of the index doesn't change. So when you press that button, these tokens from the L3 ecosystem are being minted, but the L3 community that's minted these tokens didn't get a direct resource of somebody working in the garden that day. Yet tokens were emitted. And that, to me, is something that's really quite beautiful, because what that means is that if there's less seeds index tokens, that's called burning market tokens. We are now burning market tokens and replacing them with tokens from the individual ecosystems that are the strongest, that are the most capable of supporting the wholeness of everything that has come into existence.
Right. So that if we're burning and reducing supply and the global harvest is active, then they
get more in return.
Distribution.
Right. So, all right. So it all flows back in kind of a healthy way.
Necessary in order to not have the wealth concentration feedback.
Correct.
Nervous of at the beginning of this. Okay.
Right. And so if we look at the minting of tokens as being, I don't care whether it's the SEEDS Commons, it's protocols, it's the minting of tokens or the emission of market tokens is something that is held by the wholeness. And so the emission.
Favor, just for my pedantic benefit, if you could help, when you're talking about this global process, call it the harvest and not the common, because I see it as a group of people. And then I'm scared that you're like, wow, you're getting
all right. I'm gonna and
much power.
All right, and I've used the word the harvest
governed by the citizens. In which case, let's give that a lot of power, because then the citizens have control. So anyway, I would just like.
So that in fact is what I mean by the harvest. And so when I've gone into discussing the harvest, I see it as kind of buckets. All right. So the harvest is going to be minting tokens. Why is it minting tokens? It's minting tokens because it wants to direct them. If you minted tokens and they were just given pro rata to all of the account holders in the whole ecosystem, then all that you've done is you've done a stock split, And so if I mint a whole bunch of tokens and give them to everybody who has tokens already, it's a stock split. If I mint tokens and give them out in a different distribution, we're calling it the harvest. And that different distribution is the whole purpose of this entire ecosystem. The United States has their own distribution. It's called the central bank. They've got their own unequal distribution mechanism.
So military industrial complex, that
right.
5.4 trillion in subsidies for oil and gas,
of course.
So it is unequal distribution to degeneration.
Right.
So we're taking that and kind of like turning it on. Yeah, you get it. Okay.
So if we look at the harvest as being the minting process of new tokens, then when you mint those tokens, where do they go? Some of them go into the buyseeds.earth selling website portal, where the SEEDS Commons is going to get payments, get proceeds, and allocate them to all of the member dues.
First bucket. So
some of the harvest goes there, correct. Some of the harvest goes to the integrity of, for instance, the L2 space in the as you've spoken about backing, full backing and so
part of the funding that comes here. So
that's fine. That's fine.
For
right,
how much we want to spend there. Yeah.
Right. Some of those new tokens go potentially to bridges. What that is funding the health of the individual SEEDS communities, okay? Ignoring the governance of how it works in the protocol and automation and so forth. Some of them go there. There's a magnet called regenerative thrivability impact that's pulling some of these there. Okay. The more total harvest, the less reward is going to the market, L1 market space. The bigger the numerical number of tokens being issued by the harvest, we are muting the return of the market space. And since the return of the market space has a connection through the SEEDS index over to the overall sum of the whole ecosystem, we're saying that overall sum of the whole ecosystem doesn't go just to you guys over here, L1 market people. We know that people who have left the market space and have gone to the constant space, they have said, we want a particular kind of return. We're no longer getting our return called the L3, success story. We're getting a return called, replace the inflation that disappeared in my US dollars. But the L1 return, the market seed return, is connected to the L3 seeds index fullness return. And what we're saying by minting harvest is we're saying, you don't get it all, market people. It in fact is going to the whole ecosystem. And the question is what is the pace? And you have said, for instance, in the original design of the harvest, and in your thinking of that L1 will morph into being constant itself, you've said the size of this harvest minting is such that we cause at some point the L1s to become constant. And I'm saying it could be that way, but I'm saying it doesn't have to be that way, because if it was that way, then we are disconnecting people who want to acquire L1 market seeds they want to make profit as well as change the world. We've lopped off the growth in that token. We already have a constant token.
That's not true. That's not true, because if we are constant, your profit, if you're counting profit in dollars, is still whatever the dollar's losing in value.
Okay, I agree with you.
We also have a setting. If we want to do that as an ecosystem and we want people to have a healthy profit, whatever that is, we literally get to set that.
I know.
We can set that at a 3%, exact. So we use that protocol. So it can set at 0 if we want stable, but we let the community decide how healthy that is.
Correct. I don't think that this is part of the early conversation. I think this is part of a later evolution conversation. But we
coming close. I think, and when you use these same protocols, like we have to keep Horizon 2 in mind when we're building Horizon 1, so that when Horizon 2 comes around, they don't have to build all the new tools over again.
Right. But what I'm saying is that in the constant space in the center, I've started calling it a coupon payment. Just something that's familiar to bondholders and stuff like that. You're getting a coupon payment. When you buy L2 constant tokens, you're getting a coupon payment, and that each coupon that you rip off each quarter is equal to the inflation that just happened. That's your coupon payment. It is predictable in the sense that you know that it's going to, it has an intention to be equal to that inflation. Now the government already issues those bonds. They're called TIPS. And they work against the government issued CPI. I mean, that already exists. And so what we're saying is that our constant seed has this coupon. Where's the funding for the coupon coming from? Well, an allocation of the harvest. That's where it's coming from. It's an allocation of the harvest.
And to add on to something you're saying, even if seeds were constant, right? Just like with dollars, when you're making an investment, you're not investing with your dollars expecting the value of dollars to go up. You're trying to acquire more dollars. So the other version of investing here is the harvest itself. Down here in the funding people, you're getting paid for participating in this ecosystem. Part of that is how many seeds you have planted. So that was the Horizon 2 way of doing it, rather than like the price of each seed going up, which disproportionately benefits the already wealthy. That's a protocol we don't really want. Maybe there's some room for it at like 1 to 3%, but higher than that, we're just concentrating wealth again, right? What we're doing is then you're paying people through the harvest for contributing to the ecosystem.
Correct.
So when people are like, hey, I want to make a profit, great. Participate, contribute, which part of that contribution is buying and planting tokens, and you're going to get paid for doing that. That's how you.
All right. So now we're moving into staking and bonding. Okay. So we're not fully aligned yet on the market seed and what makes the market seed different than a constant seed. We're not fully aligned, but I think we're close.
I think it's stages. That's all it is. It's
I agree.
Periods
Yep.
of its life, you know?
And but let's say that you buy some market seeds and you want to stake them. You want to get a return on them in some sense. Okay. You are willing to say, I am not going to be putting these back into the ecosystem, but I'm also not giving them away. You know, because I could give them away and just, you know, give them to people that are doing interesting projects that need that, but I'm not doing that. I'm just saying I'm going to stake them. And I'm not staking my constant seeds, because constant seeds are kind of like, well, there is a way to stake constant seeds as well in the liquidity pool bridges. So when you're making a statement saying that I'm going to post these assets and keep them there for a while, the ecosystem as a whole gets to kind of define what kind of reward the ecosystem is willing to give. And if there's nobody, if nobody in the crypto space is willing to stake tokens for, unless they get at least 75% annual return, and you say, all right, crypto space, I have these tokens over here that are going to save the planet. When you stake them, you get 3% return. We may find that there's not a big market from the crypto space there, and that we need to market these to somebody else. But we need to be speaking in a language that's about commitment. When staking and planting, I love the word planting, that you're committing these tokens to not be used in other ways for a period of time.
There you go. So let me describe the different mechanics then. You're saying 3% might not be too low, but that's 3% simply for buying and holding seeds, doing nothing else with them. I don't personally think we should give very much percent, appreciation for that. 3% is probably really healthy. You sit on an exchange, whatever, you're making some money. Where you make the real benefit is when you do stuff with those seeds, whether you're planting them, you're using them, you're engaging with your community, you're being regenerative, you're using that to fund regenerative activities, etc. All of that is how you go above the 3%. Which is really what we're trying to do here, is how to coordinate regeneration, and aligning those incentives. Buying and holding, tokens, that does nothing for regeneration. That's speculative activity. Maybe it gives us some liquidity. Great, but there's 100,000 cryptos out there doing the same thing, and none of them have regenerated the planet yet or done any impact on doing that. And in fact, a lot of them are being degenerative, so it's fine. So I don't think we really need to mirror that or try to compete or outcompete there.
I agree. And so what I would like to say is that when you put your money in the liquidity pool, an L2, L3 boundary liquidity pool,
and you earn trading fees too, and all that stuff. Yeah.
Right. But that's a commitment. That's a commitment to the health of that particular L3 community. When you take your money, whether they're market tokens or Bitcoins, when you take your money and go directly to an L3 community and say, I would really like to contribute this money into your community and have you give me some L3 tokens in response. And I'm going to agree to not use these L3 tokens. They're going to be staked as native L3 tokens, not staked into the liquidity bridge. I'm going to stake them as L3 tokens for 7 years. Will you give me a coupon on that? And the L3 community might say, yes, we're going to give you a coupon. It's going to be 9%. Whatever it is. And those and other people might go to an L3 community and say, I want to give you my Bitcoins and you are going to give me back the L3 tokens. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to immediately give those L3 tokens back to the treasury of your community so that you can distribute them to projects and people in need in your community. It could be done that way, so there's all different kinds of mechanisms. But when we are talking about the protocols or the processes that a community kind of agrees to be part of the SEEDS ecosystem, it will include, of course, alignment with the SEEDS Constitution and so forth, but it needs to include a method, a function call that says, put money in and get L3 tokens. And so then people can know what it looks like. And it's really easy. I don't need to talk to you guys. You get me a method. It's a button on my phone. And once I have L3 tokens, you can have a button called donate them to my community. You can have a button called partner them with L2 tokens and put them in our liquidity bridge. each time you make a time commitment associated with these tokens, you're rewarded with emissions that come from someplace. So as you're saying in the L2, L3 bridge, it can come from exchange fees because there are some fees to cross these bridges. From parking them in the L3 native token itself, they can come from emissions that are voted on by the community in the L3 space itself. So I agree with that absolutely. And so when we're telling the story of the L1 market seed, when we sell, what we want people to know, at least I believe, is that when you buy the L1 market seed, you are contributing to the health of the world. And you're also buying a token that has some utility. You can use it to gain access to certain things in this world, and it's also on exchanges. Whether those exchanges are T-swaps or swap.seeds.money or eventually Coinbase. I don't know where this market seed will be, but people can have liquidity to turn it into whatever they want to turn it into. That liquidity is called price discovery of the L1 market seed. So that liquidity is price discovery. That is going to, for the people in the ecosystem that see the real value of the whole ecosystem, they know that the connection is over into the L3 seeds index token. That will provide kind of a grounding. If all kinds of seeds communities are failing all over the planet, you know, they give up. You know, we tried to do it, it was too complicated, we give up. You would expect the L1 market seed should go down. It's supposed to be a representation of this. And so the better we get at truly getting carbon in the ground and truly building happiness, you know, then they need to go up and down together. If this is muted to a fixed return, then we've missed the opportunity to connect them.
Then that might be Horizon 2.5, Horizon 3, or maybe right part of Horizon 2, where what is inflation? So we set it at 0, but that's a setting. That could be attached to that index. So we're saying, are we being regenerative? Great. Maybe we're appreciating at 3% because we're doing great, or 5% or whatever it is. Are we being degenerative? Maybe we're failing and we've got to mint more tokens to turn things around, you know?
Right, then we expect the market seed to go down.
Or the community wants a constant currency. And we just really value that because we want to price our things in constant currency seeds and we don't like appreciation and we think that's broken or whatever the reason is, then maybe we set it at 0. But we have that flexibility and we can adjust it and tweak it. So I'm really with you. I think that's great. And if we maintain the same process that I'm proposing, then it's just a settings change on whether or not we do that.
So let me think about this as a settings change.
Complex new technology, because
I don't.
Build the index, but then the index gets to change that setting that says is inflation 0%, 1%, -1%, or whatever, right?
For me, the story of the market seed as being a proxy for the accomplishments, the health of the whole ecosystem is a really beautiful story.
It is for Horizon 1, and I'm agreeing with you. We kick it off that way. But if that story goes on too long, just like a baby in a womb, it needs to grow exponentially at one point. Perfect, healthy, that's great. But those protocols do need to change as it matures. Otherwise, you're going to kill the baby, kill the mom. It's the same thing here. I think it's a powerful story for Horizon 1 for that initial adoption. But if that goes on too long, it's a wealth concentrating story and then we've failed. So that's where I think we do need to have that be a transition point. Otherwise,
I thought, right,
wealthier. And that's
so in Horizon 3, 4, 5, or whatever, I'm
saying this is Horizon like 2. I'm saying this is
I know.
Soon.
But in a future Horizon, I've certainly imagined, and I think that's what I was writing on the chat on the Discord there, that the constant currency is a thing of itself. It doesn't need a reference point in US dollars at all or any other currency.
And in this model, that's true because the reference point will be one, what the citizens are choosing related to that index. So that's the reference. All the citizens are saying is what is supply and demand of our own economy. It doesn't matter what the dollar value is or the euro value is. The original seeds harvest was what is the supply and demand in our own economy. And if we're saying 0, just balancing it, then inflation is officially 0. We are not referencing the dollar or anything in this constant currency scenario.
We only reference
adding more information to reference from. Yeah.
The referencing of the dollar and the need to know one inflation chart over time is only for that mint-burn relationship between market and constant.
Which is why I'm proposing we don't do that. So then what I'm proposing is layer 1 has no reference to dollars and probably doesn't ever need to, except for exchanges, of course, it's there, but none of the protocols need to reference that. Layer 2, and as we're currently setting it up, does. And then that's where we have the dollar, the euro, we're looking at official inflation or however we're tracking inflation, we're doing all that stuff. Now we do care about dollars and euros. And this is Horizon 1 stuff, because once we stop caring about dollars and euros in Horizon 3 and 4, this is where Horizon 1 steps in to fill that need of being a true constant global currency.
All right, so let me ask a question. So the SEEDS Commons, it says, I have, from the harvest or however they have them, I have some market seeds that were created and we're going to sell them to get working capital. And we're going to sell them on a website called buyseeds.earth that's going to be familiar to the rest of the world. And they're going to want to say, how much do they cost? And so we're going to say they're 10 cents each, they're 11 cents each, they're 50 cents each, whatever we're going to say. And people say, thank you, I want to buy them. And there'll be a button there that says also, you can buy directly constant seeds. So if the current price that we're selling market seeds is 50 cents each, then you can either get 2 market seeds for your dollar, or you can get 1 constant seed for your dollar if you're at the beginning of time. But if you're a year out, let's say you're 2 years out and the constant seed now equals $1.50 of current US dollars because of inflation, then what you'd see on your button is that at time 0, the constant seed was $1 equals $1 US on whatever date in the past. That's everyone can see as time 0. And now the constant equals 1.50 US dollars because time has passed. And so now your button choice says buy, and we're selling seeds for 50 cents. So your button choice is buy market seeds for 50 cents, or if you want to buy constant seeds, you need to pay $1.50 to get one of the constant seeds. You can't buy a constant seed for $1.
So, well, hold on. This is again a difference here. Terra is having this AUST, right? And you're familiar with that, and that's what I think you're explaining here. I don't think we need to do that at all. So when you come to buy your dollar constant seed, you're always paying $1 for it. But once you're holding this token, then you're just getting paid out 7% or whatever inflation is. And we're literally just sending you that money in Terraform, or we're holding it in a treasury and you can come and claim it when you want to. And there's an amount that you can claim that's slowly building up.
Then that means that
AUST token, because they want
I understand. I understand the difference.
Run around and trade with and do stuff with, and we don't need that in this scenario. We don't need to overcomplicate it. So I think we can keep it very simple that buying a seed US is always $1. But once you're holding on to that, now you're earning 7%, or again, whatever inflation is. I got to look that up because it's changing all over the place. Last time I looked it up, it was 7%. It's been a while. So anyway.
So here, all right. Then that means that a seed US, then when I have a seed US, it's not constant purchasing power.
It's not. Don't price your stuff in this, and why even bother doing that? We can, but then we're solidifying layer 2 and we're forgetting about Horizon 2 and 3 where we don't care about that. So if we are moving away from dollars, do we really want people to make the shift to then start pricing their things in constant dollars? No, we would rather have them making the shift to price their things in constant local currencies, and constant seeds and these other tokens, right? So I don't think we need to make it easier to then price your things in constant dollars, my opinion here, of course. So I think we can heavily simplify this, right?
It's not a constant currency if it's not a constant currency. You're saying it's a constant currency because you can claim a token to get more of them.
Fine, we can call it the offsetting inflation currency if we want. Because again, in my world, we are creating the constant currencies. We're not superimposing constancy on dollars. I don't think.
No. We're not superimposing them on dollars at all.
Well, we would in this scenario where we're saying constant dollar, and you're familiar with that, and now price your things in this, and then it's going up against the dollar, and this is the constant dollar, No.
If you go to let me open up my Discord and just
actually hold on. I think we're getting maybe.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we know what we mean by the constant, but it's an important question, because when you post on a liquidity bridge between L2 and L3, you're posting a certain number of constant tokens and a certain number of L3 tokens.
Yeah, I hear you.
You're not getting your coupon.
So we do need an AUST type.
Yeah.
Okay, for those liquidity pools where we're having that constancy. Then my nervousness here is, again, the future horizons, because now we're kind of being dependent on this new layer 2 currency. We're creating pools based on it. We're kind of solidifying the structure. So we're not really going to evolve beyond it.
Well, but that's why
the foundation. So
yeah, it's a foundational thing. That's why I say it's called a C seed. So when you have a constant seed, all the liquidity pools are constant seed against the whatever the local L3 is called.
So in your framing, let me try to simplify this. You see volatile seeds, constant seeds, community seeds.
Correct.
And you see those three being a nice relationship for multiple horizons to come. Okay, so in my world, it was layer 2 was a bootstrapping mechanism to get operating capital in, have constant, currencies. But my horizon 3 and 4 was just constant seeds and community seeds. No need for the market speculative currency. Maybe there is a need for that if it's tapered well and it's built into the harvest. So we're making it so like, yep, let's have it 3% heavy, like nice returns. That's generative, that's helpful, that's rewarding, that's great. Because again, the perverse side of financial capital being a better investment than all the other forms of capital is we say it's better to clear cut this forest, turn it into market seeds and speculate on it because you can earn 30% when you can only earn 8% sustainably harvesting that forest, So we actually need to look at the, natural capital returns and ensure that they're either equal or less than natural capital returns.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, again, we're creating a problem.
Correct.
And if we did that with all three of the relationships, that could be beautiful. And there might be some real value here, and I can update my mental model. However, I will only do so if it doesn't require that we're going to have to rebuild all the architecture, because I keep seeing a way that we can use our current protocols and all the work we've done the last 3 years to make this work, as well. So that's what the middle path is for us.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. So let's let me say one thing about the central layer, and then I want to shift over to G seeds on the agenda, if that's okay.
Sure.
All right. So in the center, I'm gonna put this up as a share screen just in case anybody's watching this video later.
Well, hold on.
All right. So just one final thought about the C seed, the center there. Because the C seed is the pair with the liquidity pool, I like it being constant, and then we only need to nail down the starting points at time 0 when this launches, the starting point relationships, and then it just stays constant. Ooh. So I think people will.
I have a middle way already. Just bear with me. Okay, so I thought the future was 2, constant currencies and community currencies. So actually, why don't we just move it over? And the new one we're creating is the market currencies. And then I align with you thinking we do have one constant currency, and then it just has a reference point to other, national currencies. But it is the constant currency, and it's what I saw as the future of layer 1. You're just saying it exists in layer 2. Great, I'll shift that over. So the future of layer 1 is layer 2. And then a new layer 1 emerges, which is not constant. It's meant to be a price appreciating one, and that's the market currency.
I'm okay with that. That's great. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I'll send it back to you.
Okay. Yeah. So nomenclature is important. So let's get the definitions, because the constant seed is the constant seed, and we may want to use the word seed for that, or we may want to use the word like the letter C in front of it, constant seed. So we can decide that, but the concept is really only relevant against the existing Genesis seeds. So let's switch the conversation into the Genesis seeds for a second. But you're saying that you want that the new token that's being created is in fact the market seed, and
I have a hard time with market seed because everything is a market.
I don't like the word either. We haven't come up with a better word yet. So let's just
maybe we call it speculative
placeholder.
Anyway, so market seeds layer 1, constant seeds layer 2, community seeds layer 3. Okay.
Yeah.
Reorient and go back.
All right. So now the Genesis seeds. So the way that I see the Genesis seeds is we right now have something like 225 million liquid Genesis seeds out there. They came from the 150 million, maybe it's a little bit higher than that. Let me see.
I can just bring it up right here if you want, and then you can just keep it flowing.
All right.
So seeds we have right now. We have 128 million or 138 million in circulation.
No, I want to add together the full milestone package. No, let's not. Let's just add together the 79 million that have been issued to Haifa, and then whatever has been debited out of campaign. So let's see if we go to gifts.seeds.
So the ones in circulation are what's come out in campaigns, and then how many have been sold, minus those that have been planted. So it's essentially what we have right now. And
I
the
want
ones
to
that are liquid in Haifa and milestones too. So anyway.
Yeah. Just for my numbers to be clear in my head, gift.seeds has 1.01 million right now. And let me go and see, what did gift.seeds start with? Where did I put it? All right. Gift.seeds started with, here it is, 1.099 million. So it's 1.01 now. So 98 million seeds came out of gift.seeds. 78 million seeds came out of Haifa milestones. So if you add them together, you got about 175 million seeds that are liquid. They may be temporarily planted in the planting, but there's 175 million Genesis seeds that came from liquid buckets. 175 million. There is the also the second 78 and 79 million that are going eventually to the on the journey to the Seeds Commons right now. I'm leaving them off the table for a second. So there's 175 million liquid seeds out there. There are in the escrow account, and included in those liquid seeds, some of them are, for instance, the remaining liquid seeds that are currently on Seeds that are owned by Haifa. So 175 million liquid seeds. We're done with that discussion.
Okay, all right.
The seeds that are in escrow and the seeds that were that are part of Haifa, that's 620 plus whatever has come out of alliances and referrals. And so we could look at those numbers up, but let's say that that's 650 million to 700 million. So there's 175 million liquid seeds, and there's, say, 700 to 750 million deferred seeds. If we add them together, 750 and 175, so we're somewhere, 900 million. All right. So these are Genesis original seeds. I do not want all of these Genesis original seeds to map immediately over into L1, L2, L3 space. What I propose is the following.
Before we keep going, why are you treating deferred seeds and liquid seeds as the same?
They're not the same. There's 175 million liquid seeds, and there's, say, 700 and some odd million deferred seeds.
So you're calling all of these Genesis seeds?
All of these are Genesis seeds. There's Genesis liquid and there's Genesis deferred.
Okay, sure. So you are classifying them in separate categories, just Genesis deferred, Genesis liquid, not all Genesis. Got it.
Correct. Yeah, thank you. So in the new world, we start, let's say the new world of markets of L1, L2, L3 is being initiated, and everything is zero. And we want to put some seeds into the world. I've suggested the way that seeds get put into the world is that market seeds get minted. We can call it the harvest protocol. We can call it the Seeds Commons, but a certain set of market seeds are minted, and they're put into the buyseeds.earth selling page. That's where they go. And then people buy them, and the proceeds go into the Seeds Commons for a distribution harvest mechanism, which would initially be, to fund the dues and things like that.
And I'd say Horizon Zero, just as we're putting the whole story together right now, if we're starting over from scratch in a way, then we mint tokens, if there's no tokens to already use, for whatever the next season needs. So the Commons comes together like, our budget, we need $100 million or whatever. That's excessive. We need $1 million to work the next 3 months. we're going to mint then $1 million worth of seeds and put them up to sale.
Correct.
And then the community gets to turn around and be like, yep, we just participated in this season. We love everything that's going to happen. We want to make this possible. I'm going to buy some seeds to help fund this next season.
Right. And what they're buying is market seeds. Okay. And so that's how seeds come into existence. I would suggest that we can actually put a few more seeds into existence. And the way that I see that going is, let's say we have the budget and we're going to do $1 million for this season, and we're going to be selling market seeds at 10 cents each. It doesn't matter what we sell them for, but it's a number. So we sell them for 10 cents each, which means that we're minting 10 million seeds because we want to get $1 million. I'm saying we can actually mint not 10 million seeds, but how about 11 million seeds? And if we mint 11 million seeds instead of 10 million seeds, then where are these new seeds coming from? Or what's the purpose of this extra million seeds? And I'm saying that the extra million seeds are available for people with regular Genesis liquid seeds to press a button called burn my Genesis liquid seed and get a market seed. So it's a button.
This is interesting. Okay, so we have liquid seeds and deferred seeds. I'm totally happy with deferred seeds staying deferred and being able, because people didn't have them anyway. Perfect. We'll figure out a way to bring those in safely and helpfully. Liquid seeds I have a hard time with because we've already told the story that you have these seeds. So if we ever enter into a situation where we say, well, you had them and now you don't have them, that's complicated for me.
No, it's not that you had them and you don't have them. They still have Genesis seeds. There's a naming convention, but they still have them. They're in their wallet. They can see them.
Well, this is okay. Let's look at it a different way. We're saying we're forking, which at this point we really are. This is definitely a hard fork. We're creating a new currency. In order to transfer over, we're just doing that in the slow, meticulous way. Great. And then when we mint that extra million, we're saying, okay, we're allowing $1 million to come over this next season. And then are we going to do it proportionally to say, okay, so if I have 100,000, or if I own 10% of all of the liquid seeds,
175 million. If you own 10%, then your button is
1,000.
Yep. And so what we're doing is we're pacing how the existing seeds go over to the new seeds. So now let's just say the new seeds.
Last question. Why do you think that pacing is necessary? Because I don't think there's that many liquid seeds anyway.
There's 175 million of them.
True. But how they're distributed right now, okay, never mind.
Okay, so let's say we're going to let's say we chose our initial selling price for market seeds to be a penny. All right, if we chose that our initial selling price of market seeds is a penny, then we're going to, and we know that we need, let's say, $1 million to do some work for a particular period of time as working capital, then we would basically say we're going to issue 100 million of these new seeds. And we're going to issue some additional ones that are claimable in a mint burn from the old Genesis seeds. Then people in the old world are saying, oh, I'm only getting a penny for my my Genesis liquid seeds because I'm getting market seeds that are being sold for a penny. We have to calibrate that. We have to decide what it is. If we say that it's 10 cents or 25 cents, whatever we say, then we can't let very many people, we can't allocate that many to press the button. It's a value relationship. So if we say we are going to get $1 million worth of purchasing coming in, how much of that do we want to direct to making liquid the existing Genesis seeds? And it's just a percentage. And I'd suggest it's a relatively small percentage, like 10% or less. Then everybody has in their wallet their Genesis liquid seeds, and they can press a button to convert whatever the percentage is of this week. You know, they can convert them over to new market seeds, and their market seeds they can convert to constant seeds if that's what they prefer.
I have an amendment here, and hopefully it's not too complicated. And I don't think it is. It goes back to my original desire when we were forking this anyway. If you paid money for your seeds, I want you to still have those liquid, and I'm not afraid of those people who paid for them to be market selling them at a loss, like every other, you know, airdrop or anyway. So I think that situation's fine. And even if I had 300 million seeds, if they were acquired through purchasing, I'm not worried about them. The only ones I was worried about were the ones that were acquired through the campaign
I
function. And
understand.
a bunch of weird
I
stuff.
understand.
So maybe what we do is when we do this fork, the initial market seeds is we just replay all the purchasing. So the purchase contract, we literally just
You don't know. You don't know what the purchases are. It's not possible.
we saw how many
You know?
seeds we sent out. So I'm saying we send out the literal same amount. We just replay it.
No, because a lot of people bought seeds from lots of other people.
In that situation, then it's just scaling it across. You know, you were doing that because you're getting a better price anyway. There's some other benefit you're getting, and now you just have to wait before you can convert them. But the people who got them through campaigns, which is really what we are nervous about, because they're the ones that would sell it for anything. Then we can
yeah, I definitely understand.
When the people that I've talked to, which has been a lot, and they like bought seeds and now they're going through this, like I paid money to do this, I've contributed, and now I'm losing trust. I want to support those people, and I'm less interested in supporting there's a small class. I think mostly a lot of the campaigns are great, but some of them are like, hey, we're just going to run a campaign because all we care about is cashing out.
Well, first of all, 98 million seeds went out on campaigns. That's the number. We just looked at it.
Right. So that's the
98 million seeds went under campaigns. Yeah. All right. And those seeds are wherever they are. They've gone through whatever journey they've gone through. There was the guy in I can't remember his which community he's in, and he was selling seeds to investors to help them build mud huts. And I bought 1,000 from him at what 8 cents or 10 cents or whatever it was, and John bought some. A lot of people bought them, and so a lot of the seeds, it's all mixed up. I don't know how you unweave this.
Well, we don't. I think that's where we came to, right? This is just too complex. I guess the only fair way to do it is fair across the board. So anyway, I guess I'm coming back to you and saying, all right, we can have this scaled in and let everyone kind of do it. And now I'm curious about the pricing, because this makes a big difference too, especially when storytelling and narrative is concerned. But if we do start off below 10 cents, which is what we're selling them at, it could piss people off unless we're clear about the storytelling to say, if you're willing to exit for a penny, then fine, you can exit for a penny. And then the people who are willing to sell them for anything and they want instant liquidity, great, we can have them come and do that at the penny price, opposed to doing it at the 10-cent price. So we can scale up with letting everyone know we have a process to get back to the 10-cent price and beyond. So it's just a waiting game. If you've bought it, hold on.
How about this as a process?
Sure.
All right. So this is again about pacing. If we say to people, we're minting new market seeds in this redesigned multi-layer thing. We're minting new market seeds at 10 cents each. Okay. All of your liquid Genesis seeds over a period of time are going to morph into market seeds. And we don't know what that time pacing is. But every single one of those liquid Genesis seeds are going to turn into market seeds. When they turn into market seeds, you're part of the new ecosystem, and you can sell them if you want. You can turn them into constant seeds. You can contribute them to L3 communities. You're there. Right. If you want to have market seeds sooner than your Genesis seeds transforming, then you need to buy some market seeds. But every single one of the liquid Genesis seeds is turning over. When we can also say for the seeds commons,
injecting one thing real quick, and then as long as you can hold on to that, can you hold on to that thought? Okay. Then I have something else. I want to reverse engineer planting as if that was earning some type of benefit, and then reinstate that. So all the people who did buy and plant, that was thank you. Let's have some way of thanking all of those people. And I think that would be a way of doing this then.
Completely agree. Totally agree.
All right. So that makes me happy that there's a way of, okay. So keep going.
So let's say the Seeds Commons is making a statement saying that buyseeds.earth is not going to be issuing seeds at less than 10 cents. We anticipate in issuing them at higher prices as the ecosystem is growing, but that's our base. We're not issuing them at less than 10 cents. All right. So what does buyseeds.earth? It's a one-sided marketplace. People can only buy. So they're either buying or they're not buying. Well, what other marketplaces are there? Well, there's swaps. There's maybe there's a Telos seeds market seed swap pair or whatever. Those things are in a bootstrap phase right now because there isn't a seed index and 100 communities over here. But we've told the story of where we're going. So how did any market seeds get over into the seeds Telos pair? They only got into the seeds Telos pair because you bought them from the buyseeds.earth website. So if you just bought them for 10 cents and you put them in the Telos pair to allow other people to buy or whatever, let's say the Telos pair is trading at 17 cents. Because people in the Telos world just think that's the greatest story in the world and they're just buying them up, and that's what the price turned into. Then people will go to the website and buy them for 10 cents and sell them for 17 cents, and we'll find a balance. So the arbitrage is buy them from the website and sell them at the higher price on the Telos swap. All right, that's if the price is higher. And so eventually they'll come back into balance. But that causes people to buy them from the website.
Well, and that gives a lot of price to the website to set the price of seeds. Correct. Unless there is a very clear finite amount. And this is why there was a finite amount in the sale contract that ticked up every period. It's so that there's not an undue power on this body to just arbitrarily decide what the price is. Now it's a contract that's arbitrarily deciding it based on how much are being sold.
Right, I'm fine with that.
So I really maintain that relationship where it is ticking up after everything's sold. Let's just keep the same contract, keep it playing. And if you're happy,
and that's what I've said in the Seeds Commons, but exactly how the parameters are all going to be set as a conversation.
Yeah, I think we can tweak those if they seem broken, or we can improve them, of course. Yeah. Okay.
But let's say that the price in the market, in Telos in the market, let's say it was just for convenience saying Telos is the market pair. Let's say the price is going down. And maybe we don't even make it Telos on the market pair. We make it Telos USDT or Telos USDC or whatever. But let's say the price is going down over there. Now people are selling them for 7 cents over there, for 6 cents over there. Well, we want people to go and buy them to pull them back up to parity, because if they don't buy them there, then they're not going to buy them from the website. If they're not willing to buy them for 6 cents, they're not going to buy them for 10 cents on the website.
If there's pure information, if there's no information asymmetry. So
right, there is information asymmetry, but so
when you're buying them from the website, you're not just buying them to acquire them, you're buying them to support the comments and whatever the next season is.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
See, when you're not necessarily doing that when you're buying it from T.
So is it unhealthy? Is it something that we should fear that the price on the Telos swaps is going to be under 10 cents? The answer is no.
Right.
As long as the story is communicated clearly that a market seed equals the health of the ecosystem. Do you believe that the health of the ecosystem has just failed? Well, then you're going to sell your tokens. Do you believe that the health of the ecosystem is coming up? And that's why the story of L1 equals seed L3 index is part of the story.
Well, that would be really powerful, because what we disconnected was that, people were selling seeds not because they thought seeds wasn't going to succeed or any of that. They were selling seeds because they got them for free and they wanted to sell them because they needed money.
Correct. Right. And so the whole point of designing the L3 tokens as things that are resource contributing, L3 tokens come out of the agreed to contribution of resource in the local community. That's what mints L3 tokens. And that story is shared on the website about each L3 community, so people know what the L3 community is all about. What's their purpose? Why are they in existence? And if people love what they're doing, then they're going to want to support it. They're going to make bridges and stuff like that. And so as long as people understand that the market seed equals the seeds index in some way that is transparent and visible, and that we tell the story, then it doesn't matter at all if the price goes down temporarily. That's what a market is. It's price discovery. It's going down, it's going up, it's doing whatever it's going to do. But at least at the beginning, who can sell on the market? Only people that can put their market seeds in a pair with whatever is our pair token on T-swaps or swap.seeds.money. Whatever is our pair token, the only people that can put them there are people that have them.
Sure.
And the only people that have them.
So this is great. I mean, it's the entire use case for exchange tokens. So Osmo and all of the ones like that out there, their entire use case is you need this token to set up a pool with all these other tokens.
Correct.
So a use case for the market seeds token.
Correct.
Constant seeds for that matter. is to come and set up and establish these pools with the community currencies.
Absolutely.
So with your market seeds, you have 100 of them. You take 100 of those and you buy 50 community currencies. So now you have 50 community currencies and 50 seeds, and you put those into the pool.
Yep.
So it gave you a use for your seeds. It drove up the price and demand for the community currency because you just bought 50 of those. So you support.
Let's be clear. There's a difference between constant seeds and market seeds, and
Sure.
we'll figure out the wording. But what I want there to be is pools that are constant seeds against L3 seeds, and that there is a trading relationship between market seeds and other tokens like Bitcoin or T-swaps or whatever, and that there's a minting, you can swap as a mint. It's not a
this minting swap thing, and I'm questioning that. Anyway, then let me
Okay.
do the Horizon 1, Horizon 2 with you real quick to see if we're on the same page, because I mentioned it.
Oh, let me answer also the pacing. We could say, for instance, that we are going to start converting Genesis liquid seeds into market seeds. And here's the road. Here's the way it works. And and maybe 1% are going to go off in the first month, and then at 5% the next month, and 12%. It's going to be some kind of a journey, but as the ecosystem can support it, because it's really part of the harvest. What we're talking about is creating more market seeds. Why? To allow Genesis seeds to swap it, to burn into them.
No, I get it. And that could be that mint burn function. That's interesting. Okay. So
once all of the liquid Genesis seeds are done, and they've morphed over, then the second phase is the deferred Genesis seeds.
All right. So let me try to do a run through of this whole thing and see if it makes sense. I'm only going to do 2 horizons. So this is still kind of me. Yeah. Let me know what you think about this. Horizon 1, right now, what are we going to do? I still propose that we launch multiple, Euro, USD, Peso, whatever the community demands, constant currencies, and do the anchor protocol, earn interest, etc. So we just start doing that right now, and we launch that Horizon 1. We have this volatile seeds side, and this is when we were pacing in. So we're pacing in new currencies here, and Seeds Commons is still minting this, and we're doing that whole thing you just explained. Great, that exists here, and we're working with communities with the DAO tool launching to set this up. Cool, Horizon 1, that's the first stage. Horizon 2 is when we actually get rid of S-Euro, S-USD, S-Peso. That's not useful anymore. And we actually just have constant seeds, C-seeds or whatever they are. And that's because this layer 1 actually merged into layer 2, looking like this, when we got to this phase of our maturity, is now actually we have our own stability. So now layer 1 becomes layer 2 in that sense. So this matures into being constant. It is one way of looking at it. And then we set up our own, new volatile seeds. Maybe we call these, speculative seeds or volatile seeds or whatever. Actually, I think volatile is pretty good. Just leave it at that, but this one is the one that's connected with the index and then also connected with the harvest. And we're saying, hey, we're going to have 3% appreciation or negative 3% or whatever. We get to actually choose that here, while the constant seeds is meant to stay at 0. Because we want you to be able to price your goods and services in this, and price things in this, and value things in this, take loans out in currencies that are pegged here, and be able to have that stability like we're looking for. But then this section becomes, hey, I want to make some money off this. What's the best way to make the most out of it is, staying in this zone. And then communities operate here. And that's kind of the evolution into Horizon 2. Does that make sense? Are we on the same kind of?
We're on the same page, because it's always felt a little premature to speak about market seeds being convertible into seeds index when there aren't any seeds communities. But I don't see the existing market seeds. I think that we can keep the market seed. The market seed doesn't have to merge into the constant.
I mean, it's becoming constant. It was just a way of seeing it shift. I mean, do the protocols and tokens need to change? Probably not. But if we do have, S-Euro, S-USD, or whatever we're calling them, Seeds US, Seeds Euro, Seeds Peso, those tokens are getting destroyed at some point and turning into just Seeds constant, or at least having it be convertible so it comes back together or whatever.
Let me, this is back to the AUST-UST distinction. But what I was imagining a seed Mexico and a seed US is that a seed US equals a seed Mexico equals a C seed all the time, forever. that they are the same thing, but they have a constant number in front of them. So let me share my screen for a second.
Yeah, I'm hearing that in the more mature world where inflation is the same, but inflation's affecting
with inflation not being the same.
Please, yeah, I want to explain that, because in my world, and just tell me where I'm on. This is where I'm having a hang up. Is euro inflation is different than US dollar inflation and peso or whatever. So if we're saying they have the same relationship between them, that's actually not true, because dollars are fluctuating against euro differently. But if we are saying they're the same relationship, don't we create an arbitrage opportunity where people can steal a lot of value? You know?
All right, so I'm going to share my screen, and we're going, even though this is a totally ridiculous way to do this because I don't know how to do it better than this, I'm going to do it on Notepad. You guys know how to make things really beautiful, and that's going to be great. All right, so I'm going to call this time 0. So at time 0, this is the moment that constant seeds exist. Prior to time 0, constant seeds don't exist. And just for this definition, I'm going to use this word. C-seeds means constant seed. And what we mean by this is a little hard to know, but it's something that when we close our eyes, we mean it's constant against purchasing power, even though that's not defined. But we all feel like we have an idea that we know what that means. It's a constant seed. It does not go up and down at the whims of inflation. But, you know, tomatoes might be, had a real bad harvest this year. And tomatoes might have had a great harvest that year. It's not like one constant seed always buys one tomato, because the reality is nature is changing. But our intention is that the constant seeds are outside of the whole inflation.
Cheat, because if anyone is watching this is helpful. You get this screen here.
Oh, good.
Well, actually, let's get rid of that. Where are you? Here you go. So constant is this flat line. Central bank is losing value. Bitcoin and stuff is way too volatile and all over the place. Stocks, whatever. So we want a currency that's actually flatlining.
Okay.
That's it.
So, all right, I agree. Back over here. So into my less beautiful presentation. So at time 0, we create this idea called a constant seed. And we have to tell someone, what does it equal on that moment in time, that moment of birth? And what we're going to say is a C seed is equal to something called a US dollar. Okay, we're just going to pick that one just for this conversation. We could change it to something else, but that's what we're going to say at time 0. I'm going to put that in extra bold here, at time 0. All right, what else are we going to do? We're going to say we're going to invent something called SEED US. And just because people, we just decided we're going to have another name, a SEED US is equal to a C seed, which means that at time 0, it's equal to US dollar. But this lets us kind of like have a branded US dollar version. All right, good. Now, if time 0 were today, I can tell you that today, 1 US dollar happens to equal 5 British real. No, I'm sorry, Brazilian real. I said British. So 1 US dollar happens to equal 5 Brazilian real right now. So if today was time 0, then I can say the following thing is true. 5 Brazilian real equals 1 C seed. That's true as of if today is time 0. 5 Brazilian real equals 1 C seed. I say, okay, that's good. And so I might as well brand also a seed BR. So seed BR is going to equal 5 BRA, which is also going to equal to 1 C seed.
Okay, no, I see what you're doing here. And this works really well because we're not holding treasuries in Brazilian real. Yeah. So when we're coming in, we're holding Bitcoin or something. No, we're not holding Bitcoin. Whatever else we're holding, then we can actually make this all true, because if the Brazilian real, completely collapses, we don't actually have any risk to that.
All right, no, let me finish up because you just went someplace that's not where I'm going. So now I'm going to put a little spacer here. So if today was time 0, then what we're saying is we're creating the constant. We're just going to happen to benchmark it to equal $1. And a seed US is going to equal to this, is going to equal to $1 at that benchmark times 0. But we also happen to know at benchmark times 0, $1 is 5 BRA. So 5 BRA, since it equals $1 equals 1 C seeds. So we're going to now brand a seed BR. So now create branding for seed BR. So what are we going to make a seed BR? We're going to make a seed BR. Let's change this here because this is no good anymore. We're going to say 1 seed BR equals 1 Brazilian real. That's what we're going to say. Create branding for that. Well, then we can then just say, well, what is a 1 C seed, which equals 1 seed US, which equals $1, which equals 5 BRA, which equals 5 seed BR.
Sure.
That's true at the very beginning. So now we're in the future. And from time 0 to future, it just turned out that there was 10% inflation in US dollar. And in the same window of time, there was 20% inflation in the traditional fiat currency called Brazilian real. So I now am in the future. And so if I want to buy, if I'm going into to try and buy a C seed or buy a one seed US, thus I need $1.10 of future USD equals $1 of time 0 USD, because there's been 10% inflation. So I need $1.1 of these future USDs, which are really just the USDs at that time in the future, to get one of those original USDs, which would get me 1 seed US, which equals 1 C seed. Well, let's take a look at the let's look at the Brazilian real. Thus, 1.20 future BRA equals 1.00 times 0 BRA, which equals 1 seed BR. And so what this means is that if I need 6.00 future BRs equals 5.00 seed BR, which equals, as we see up here, 5 seed BR equals 1 seed US.
So we're basically just maintaining the relationship. At that point, we say it's constant. And then the limiting factor for us in this new scenario is we just need to make sure that whatever interest we're earning is beyond the interest of the inflation of any currencies we're bringing into the system.
Nope.
So we're actually, well,
nope.
No. Okay.
Because when people have these 5 seed BR, 5 seed BR always forever. So I'm going to say this, forever in the future time.
Oh, interesting.
Forever in the future time. 1 C seed equals 1 seed US equals 1 USD equals 5 BRA equals this. Forever. Well, this part in here, actually, I need to remove this. Forever in the future. What I had there was true only at time 0. So say, let's copy this. So I'll say, and I'll put it right over here. So at time 0, we have this. Forever in the future, we have to remove these two guys.
Remove forever in the future for my benefit.
Remove that?
In the above one. This is at time 0 and forever.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. So at time zero, we wrote this down. We put it on the blockchain. It is time zero. We're creating constant seeds, and we all agree that 1 USD equals 5 British real at this moment in time.
Yeah.
So we now know that one constant seed equals 1 seed US equals 5 seed BR. These are just branded constant seeds, but the seed BR is going to be constant against British real, against Brazilian real. The seed US is going to be constant against seed US dollars. So in the future,
from the beginning, we start off with constant seeds, which is one single token, and then we just have makeup on them, essentially.
Yes, the makeup is the branding.
Sure.
That's the branding. And so if you are living in your branding world of seed BR, then you know in the future, if you want to convert your seed BRs back into this, you know, your CBR, if the relationship is based upon your inflation, but your CBR is completely equal to the seed US is completely equal to the C seeds. You a seed, so in the future, so I'm now in the future.
So we're able to pay off that 20% inflation because we're making 20% interest. So our treasury is growing by that in order to be redeemable. Or hold on, because this isn't part of your model at all. So maybe this is where.
No. All right. So let's say I'm at the very beginning.
To see the breaking point. Could you walk through with me and actually showing the redemptions and what it looks?
Yeah, that's what I was about to do.
And then do one at like 80% inflation just to see if it'll have an outsized impact versus 10% or whatever.
All right, so I'm at the very beginning, and I live in the United States, and I send $1 US over to our constant treasurer world, and he gives me 1 C seed, and I say, thank you, I got 1 C seed. If I happen to be in Brazil at time zero, and I have Brazilian real, and I send them over to the treasurer of the constant world, and I say, I got 5 Brazilian real. And I would say, okay, it's time zero. It turns out I can exchange your 5 Brazilian real for $1 US. And so I'm going to give you 1 C seed. Why am I giving you 1 C seed? Because you gave me 5 Brazilian real. Because we're at time zero. And now the person has 1 C seed. Both people have one C seed. Now, one person says, you know, I'd like to think of my C seed. I like to brand it as a seed US. So we say, all right, call it a seed US. Enjoy yourself. A person who has 1 C seed that lives in Brazil says, you know, I'd like to brand mine in seed BR. And since I just gave you 5 Brazilian real, I'm going to brand it. I think of it as 5 seed BR. And we'll help them do this. There'll be a button on their thing. So now it's in the future. And some inflation
really
is happening.
That could be a front end thing if we want. We can create separate tokens that are forced to have this relationship. I don't know if we even need to do that. This could be a front end. If you go seed BR, cool. Multiply by 5. This is how many tokens you have. Yeah.
Correct. All so right. now you're in the future, and you've got your C seed in the future, and now for whatever reason you need to pay rent, and you're going back, and you're going all the way back to US dollars in the future. So you take your C seed, and maybe you thought of it as a seed US, but you're taking your C seed, and you're in the future, and so we've said you can get 1.10 future dollars because it's been 10% interest, and so we give them back 1.10 US dollars. Their C seed has behaved properly in the fact that it did not have any impact by inflation. Okay, so now that worked. Let's see if it works for the British real guy. So the British real guy has his C seed. Oops. The British real guy has his C seed, and he says, all right, I've got 1 C seed. Actually, I'm going to put it. I'll put it over here. He's got 1 C seed, and that C seed is equal to 5 seeds BR as far as he is concerned. Okay, so he has his C seed just like this guy did, and so the 5 C seeds, 5 seed BR is equal to 5 seed BR, just like it is up here. And I'm going to get rid of the word thus here because it just makes the spacing no good. Thus. So the CBR person, this is what's true in the CBR because the CBR was constant. The CBR, 1 CBR is equal to 1 times 0 BRA. That's what we said. But 1 times 0 BRA is equal to 1.2 future BRAs. So we're going to now say multiply this whole thing by 5. So 5 future BRA by 5, multiply by 5, multiply by 5. And so 6 future BRAs, future British Real, equals 5 CBR time 5. No, let's do it. Just follow it right here. Grab this. Equals 5 times 0 BRAs equals 5. Here we go. 5 CBRs. So all I did is I multiplied this line out. 6 future BRAs equals 5 times 0 BRAs equals 5 CBRs. Well, 5 CBRs equals 1 C seed. So the guy that has 1 C seed, when he says, I need to get some actual future BRAs from, he's going to wind up getting 6 future BRAs.
So
and the reason is because in the future world, future fact is that one future, no, I'll say it this way. 5 future USDs equals, no, let's do it this way. 1.20 future BRA equals 1.10 future USD. That's the fact. Oops, no, that's not the fact. 6.00. 6.00 future BRAs equals 1.10 future USDs. That's the fact. Which means the exchange rate between US dollars and British reals has changed. Brazilian reals has changed. This is the future fact. 1 future US dollar equals 1 times 0 US dollar. Let's do it. Let's make it even.
So what I brought up before, and I think you accidentally said no to this when maybe you meant to say yes. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is we're bringing in BRA. So when we're saying it's worth that, if we can earn 20% inflation, then the ecosystem's neutral here when they come in and actually make their redemption and they take value back out.
Oh, that's what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
When I take in BRAs,
has higher inflation, and when you're trying to offset 100% or something, and then you're coming in and you're wanting to claim double the value because your currency's tanking, but our ecosystem with the money you put in was only able to make 20% on it. But you're thinking that you can claim, 200% because your nation state's just printing money like it's ridiculous. We can't honor that. So we have to have a way of saying we can only honor currencies if inflation's less than 20%.
That would, if we held BRAs in our treasury. If we held BRAs in our treasury, that'd be true.
No. Even if we don't, because my point is they get to come in and they're going to claim, 20% more in value in the future. They're claiming that value. Its value is coming from somewhere. And ad absurdum here. If we're saying we're going to back and call this new country's currency, we'll call it BRA too, why not? And say it's at 120% inflation, but we're basically backing that. We're saying if all your money comes in and then buys these constant seeds, and then your inflation's at 300%, then you get to take all of that money and exit again at 300% of its value. That would drain, probably wouldn't.
No, either I'm missing it or you're missing it. So let's find it.
Yeah.
Okay. If all I take in is US dollars, you agree it works because we are investing it in and getting 20% in Anchor, because I'm taking my US dollars and I'm converting them to USTs. Sure. I'm not holding the US dollars. I'm converting them into USTs and putting them into Anchor. You agree?
Right.
All right. So then when somebody comes back and says, there's been 10% inflation, and we say, well, that's not really a problem for us because we have all of these extra USTs and we're going to turn them and so we can turn those USTs back into US dollars and give you some US dollars. Not a problem at all. But now we're in agreement there. As long as the UST is earning more interest than this 10% inflation, then we're fine.
Sure.
All right, so now the Brazilian real situation. I take this Brazilian real and I convert them into SEEDS. Well, what am I going to do with the Brazilian real? I'm going to immediately convert them into US dollars and immediately convert them into UST.
Let's do something underneath and literally put in the dollars in our treasury.
Okay, all right, let's do it.
We'll say value an ecosystem if we're not even holding it into a treasury. Let's say,
all right, so
$1 payment.
So 1 USD arrives.
Because 5 BRs.
We turn it into 1 UST. We earn 20%. Means easy to redeem back to US dollars as long as US dollar inflation is less than 20%.
I like that. Yep.
Okay. All right. So now 1 BRA arrives.
5.
I'm thinking. Okay. 5 BRA arrives. We convert it into, it happens to be at time 0. So we convert it into 1 UST. US dollar, and then we convert it into 1 UST. And we earn 20%. Now, how are we going to do the redemption? So now we're in the future. Person wants, let's say there's been 3 years have passed. And so there's like 100% inflation is happening.
And right now we only have $2 in our treasury.
And the person wants, let's say, person wants
dollars plus 20%. So we have 240 in our treasury. Let's say this is a year in the future, and now
okay. So all right. So 1 year passes.
An ecosystem value or whatever, because that's
1 year passes. All right. So we now have 2.40 UST. Okay.
Right.
Nope. I'm sorry. We have 1.20.
No.
UST.
We have $2 that have come in, and we've earned 20%. So we have 2.4.
Okay. I was just doing.
Okay, if just the BRA
one.
All right, so just the BRA came in. Yeah.
Right. All right. So 1 year passes. We have $1.20 in the treasury, and the person wants to redeem. Person wants to redeem BRA. So what we do is we go and we say, okay, 1.20 UST equals 1.20 US dollars. Okay. So now we have to exchange to BRA. Well, what is a BRA against the US dollar? Is it still 5-to-1? No. Now, if you want to get a US dollar, you're like 6-to-1. It's actually 6-to-1.1. Right? We put it right over there. So exchange to BRA. So we're going to get, let's do a little math over on the side. We're going to get, we have 1.2 equals that divided by 1.1 equals that times 6. So we actually have, that will give us 6.545 BRAs. 1.2 US dollar, 1.1 future US dollars equals 6. So 1.2 equals 6.5. So we have 6.5 BRAs, and we need to give the person, because they gave us 5, so we can say give person 6 BRA.
Okay, so that's interesting. So now does it work in the other extreme? Meaning, I want to stress test this and walk it through because this is great.
Okay.
Now, the USD inflation was really high. That's probably where it collapses, especially if we're using USD.
The whole thing collapses if the US dollar inflation is more than the anchor.
All right, but now the other way, BRA is depreciating against the dollar. what if we're using a currency, let's call it Swiss francs, appreciated against the dollar? Does it still hold true? Because I see depreciation, we have a higher treasury, that's great. But if we have appreciation against the dollar, is the inverse true, where now we don't have enough?
Well, the question is, what are we holding our assets in and for why? If we're holding our assets in UST, it's because it's paying us 20% on anchor.
So we always have to move it to the highest yield thing, which is also what people are paying for. So you ask the other thing, what's the benefit here? It's so you don't have to do all this complex shit.
Right.
So then we have to, as a SEEDS Commons, need to make sure that we're having the highest yield and safest place that we're putting assets. So we start acting like a fund manager in that way.
Correct.
Or we only allow currencies in the stability mechanism if they're depreciating against the dollar.
No, because
or if they're the same against the dollar, but if you're appreciating against the dollar, or as long as you're not appreciating in excess of the interest we can earn. So there's that threshold there. That's always
because we nail down every single exchange rate at time zero. The exchange rate at time in the future is related to exchange rate at time zero and the inflation changes of all of the different currencies. And so, but nobody knows what the inflation is. What you can see in the future is the exchange rate. How do we know that we're giving people 6 BRAs? We're giving people 6 BRAs because somebody said the inflation was 20%. That's not what we're really doing. What we're really doing is we're giving them whatever is the equivalent BRA to USD conversion at that point in the future. Why do they want 6 BRAs?
I have a security mechanism here. We can say up to, we're going to offset inflation up to X%.
We have to say something like that. And that's what I was arguing with Terry about a lot. And Terry kept saying, no, we'll just by agreement do it. But the point is that the agreement is about at the point, if everybody is living in CSEEDs and they're using CSEEDs for liquidity bridges and they're using CSEEDs for other regional supply chain exchanges that are outside of any concept of an L3 community, then it's fine. It's only when people want to take their CSEEDs and turn them back into a fiat currency or a market seed that we need to know something.
So I like it a lot better. And what we actually have coming together here is two different complementary and supportive paths to constant currencies. Because the layer 1 volatile one could be made constant if we set the parameters to 0. The layer 2 is constant by initial design. So we have a constant in the Horizon 0, which people are asking for and demanding for today. So we can create that constant currency and we can still grow, an intrinsically constant currency over time, which is necessary for when dollars and everything else collapse and become useless and this whole structure falls apart.
I agree completely, but why isn't this seed that constant currency already?
It can. I'm saying there's two complementary and different paths to it. And maybe this is also the reason why we don't set inflation to 0% in the layer 1 area, because we already have a constant currency. So we don't need a second one. So maybe this one can have appreciation at 1, 2, 3% or whatever.
I agree.
That if we want it, like whatever, it's up to us to be able to decide what level of volatility we want to exist there. So yeah,
the level of volatility is inherent in the price discovery mechanism. The price discovery mechanism will do whatever it's going to do in volatility.
But if last thing, we're on the same page here, so I want to get to one parameter. What do we set as the up to point? I want to be conservative and say 10%. Because if we can earn 20%, we still want operating capital, or there's no reason for doing this. So then I say we set 10%. We'll say we'll offset inflation up to 10% over time. Or you should set a higher or lower.
All right, so you're saying that the initial design of the CSEED, so let's say I'm in Zimbabwe and I'm worried about my currency is going into hyperinflation, or I'm in Argentina, whatever, and I'm worried about hyperinflation coming out. And I know that the United States dollar has inflation, but I kind of believe in it better than my currency. So what I would do if I'm living in Zimbabwe or living in Argentina or in any country that is potentially going to experience hyperinflation, it would be smart for me to go to the local exchange and turn them into US dollars, put the US dollars in my mattress, even though I know that the US dollars are going to have some inflation. And then when I need to have my local currency again, convert it back.
Yeah.
And what we are saying is that we believe we have the ability, see, you're going at it from the anchor side.
I agree. Shut that down. That's not the question. There's a more nuanced way of asking the up to percent point. And I think you actually have a better way of saying that. So I'll let you tell me where that threshold is, because it's not actually in the appreciation itself or the depreciation of the currency itself, because we're not holding any risk to their currency. It's actually the relationship between dollars, which we are holding, and whatever their currency is, right? Or I'm confused at where it is. I know it exists somewhere. I'm trying to tease it out.
The value that's what the anchoring of the whole L3 ecosystem will be. The L3 ecosystem.
Can't bring that into this yet.
Can't bring it in yet. So we need a transition phase. We're in Horizon 0. And so in Horizon 0, we could come at it from the vantage point of we are going to take assets, convert them however you give them to us, Bitcoin or US dollars or Brazilian real, however you give us the assets, we're going to take them and convert them into UST. We're going to have a little friction along that conversion, so we have to kind of handle that. And then we're going to take those USTs and put them into Anchor Protocol.
All right, so actually, hold on. I got this. This works really well for currencies that are depreciating, Zimbabwe and everyone else, which is actually our use case, because when people are losing value, they want to leave. This doesn't work to currencies that are appreciating against the dollar, at least in excess. But also those people have no desire to do this because this is actually that beneficial for them. So I say we just exclude those currencies, and I think we get rid of that risk potential. Because that's what I'm trying to find a threshold for is, let's imagine a currency is actually appreciating. That's not happening, but let's say a currency is only at 0% inflation. Then we have the inverse of that real scenario where we have 6.5 in treasury, we only have to pay out 6. Well, if we have 0%, then we would have 5.5 in treasury and we need to pay out 6. Okay, we're insolvent. So then I think then our limitation is to say we don't hold on to currencies that are appreciating against the dollar. We just don't create constants for those yet.
It's really all right. So if a currency is living at totally zero inflation, all right, so meaning that it's appreciating against the dollar, like the CSEED is intended to do. So a currency is living at truly zero inflation, and somebody gives us that. That's what their contribution is, and then we take it and we turn it into US dollars.
Which does have that 10% inflation. And
US dollars has that 10% inflation. But we're now taking those US dollars and putting them into UST and turning them into the Terra Protocol anchor, and we're getting 20%.
Right. So in this case, at 0, we're okay. But if you're appreciating 10% against the dollar, now we're neutral. If you're appreciating 15% against the dollar, now we're insolvent.
If your currency is appreciating 15% against the dollar, then when we shift to the dollar, it's a bad idea.
Hold on, it would be appreciating 25% against the dollar. Real inflation is negative 15%. Yeah.
Right.
And our interest is 20%. So that's what I'm saying is where we're insolvent. Is that 5% is where they're extracting additional value. And
let me say, I understand. Let me say it this way. Let's say we have people contributing US dollars and we keep those US dollars. Then we are failing miserably at offsetting inflation. We take those US dollars and convert them to UST and we get 19%, 20%. Then we're doing spectacularly in offsetting inflation as long as inflation is less than 19%. And in fact, we have excess, and we can even say, look, that excess is going to sit in a reserve. We're not using it for working capital. It's just a reserve. We can't use it for anything. It's just a reserve. It's just life, because if we reserve store the extra 9.5% for many years, then if accidentally the US dollar is 27% inflation one year and Anchor is still paying 19, 20, then we've got the reserve to make up the difference.
I appreciate that if we're trying to do better than Terra Luna did, and all we want is that's constant currency, but we do need the working capital. So I want to bring that in, and that's why we set the parameters. So I agree with you. We could build that treasury, and we could let that appreciating currency extract excess value than the Zimbabwe people get to. But I'm saying let's just don't have that at all. Let's set.
All right, I'm fine with that. But I want to respond to your question about we have a currency, super stable Swiss franc, that is in fact, it's growing compared to the US dollar at 30% a year. I mean, it's so well managed compared to the US dollar. Then what we would say is, I don't want to convert my US dollars to UST to make 20%. I'm going to convert my US dollars to these guys.
That's a good point. So the SEEDS Commons just needs to have a finger and pulse on that. And this is also the logic that we're employing when we decide to bring in new currencies or not. So I think we just need this framework to identify what new currencies we're going to approve and not. And we have to be mindful, but this is also all the service that we're providing when people are giving us their money anyway. So that
this is why a mutual fund charges fees and hedge funds charge fees.
Yeah.
But we're not in the purpose. We're in the business of raising money. We're in the business of providing a constant currency, and we're in the business of doing those things because we want to achieve what's happening in L3.
Right.
That's the whole point, is the constant currency helps us achieve what needs to happen in L3. And the fact that we,
commons, which is the whole ecosystem.
The whole commons. I mean, the people in L3 don't have any tools if there's, and so that's what we're in the business of doing. That's our purpose, is way over there in the sum of all the L3 spaces. And the financial engineering is a process that is designed to encourage people to want to contribute their funds and give them understanding of why their funds are helpful to achieve the real purpose. It needs to be clear. And so when somebody sees that their funds are coming in and they are going to put them all towards L3, they don't need any L2s, they don't care about that at all, they have a path to do that. If people say, I think it's totally cool that you have a currency that offsets the US dollar inflation and offsets inflation. I live my life in US dollars, so I'm thinking about US dollar inflation. That's kind of a nice thing. Maybe that will be the little thing that causes me to come and contribute into the ecosystem. That's what, it gives a pathway. But unless we are going to say something that is hard to say, like we always offset US dollar inflation, we can't say that, because US dollar inflation, we don't know what it's going to be relative to Anchor, and we don't even know if Anchor is going to do what it says. So
there's two things. We say we'll offset US dollar inflation up to N%. I say 10. And we only accept currencies that are depreciating against the US dollar, which is the only people who give a shit anyway. So that's perfect. And then we just set up those parameters, and I think this protocol will be solved. And actually it's beneficial, because what we just demonstrated with the real, who's depreciating against the dollar, it actually builds our treasury further, because we had to pay out 6, but it gave us 6.5 over that year, right?
No, we had to pay out 6. We paid out. Now it's the same. It doesn't matter either way. It doesn't matter what they give us.
40%. Okay, because we're converting it to right. Okay. In which case, now that I'm understanding this, I see where you're coming from, and I think we've merged. So I appreciate this, and I think this is a really classy way of doing it. We don't have those separate tokens in my imagination anymore. They're all one token with different flavors, which is really just a UI front end thing. I really appreciate that as well. That's a very simple mechanism. So I think now I understand what you're saying before, when you're saying I was complicating it. I'm like, well, actually, now I see that I was complicating it by trying to create multiple currencies and do this in multiple different baskets and isolate risk and all of that stuff. But you actually said there's a simpler way of doing this by having one currency, as long as we have those different parameters of what could be part of this basket anyway. So now I love it.
Well, tell me what you mean by part of this basket. What do you mean?
It's again, fake currency out there that's appreciating 25% against the dollar. We don't necessarily know, or whatever. And as part of this basket, it's going to extract value. So we wouldn't add that currency. And when I say basket is which currencies are we allowing to be constant, i.e. which currencies are we letting do that front end UI bit where we get to say that it's constant to the real and it's constant to the peso and whatever. Why this is also really important is there's currency wars going on right now. China, Russia, US, BRICS, like they're all trying to destroy each other. And there's this whole kind of battle against the currency thing happening. We don't know that there's not going to be crazy price swings. So we actually want to avoid having some of those currencies be part of this promise that it could be constant. You know, that's what I'm calling a basket or whatever. Basket's a terrible term, so that's not the right term. In order to be considered constant, there's a threshold that this currency has to meet these requirements in order for us to say, yes, we're going to accept it into this environment.
By accept it, you mean put it into the UI? Because
into the UI and let people have the agreement and understanding that they can convert this back.
Nobody can ever convert the constant back to their currency. That's kind of the point
right.
of
the other point that we're trying to merge on right now is in this world. All right. So one more thing we need to kind of align on is the SEEDS commons taking in dollars for the currency and then literally putting that into a treasury where we have a treasury we can look at and be like, hey, we've issued 100 million constant SEEDS and there's $100 million in this treasury. Everyone's happy. You know, we could say that we're full reserved. In my world, that's what I'm still operating with Horizon 0. And that's what I'm saying is redeemable, as in we are solvent. We can look at that and say, there's 100 million in claims, there's 100 million in our treasury, and actually our treasury should and would be higher. Okay, we're solvent. What I'm trying to avoid is that situation where we're like, oh, well, we have 200 million in claims, but there's only 100 million in our treasury. We're insolvent. And that could happen if we're taking in currencies that have an excess claim on that treasury. So if they come in at some point and then whatever inflation goes, whatever way it needs to, in order for them to have an excess to be able to claim back on that treasury. That's why we need to have a limit where we can say, well, we're only going to offset your crazy currency here by this much percent in order to have that claim on that treasury. If that makes sense.
Because let's say, all right, let's do a hyperbolic example.
Exactly. Currency comes in 10,000% inflation on it. So they want to come back to the pool and claim 10,000 more value than they put in, but there's just not that much value in the pool to claim. Ergo, we can't honor that agreement.
It's not. Let me get you to where I'm thinking because I think that you're incorrect.
Oh, okay.
So crazy currency. We're going to call crazy currency, and it's going to have 10,000% inflation this year. U.S. dollar is going to have 10% inflation this year. And both of them right now, at this moment at time 0, $1 US equals 1 crazy currency. Just happens to be. Okay.
I get that part. So I guess maybe that's where I'm. Okay, please continue explaining this, but now I think I've made sense.
Okay, so one person puts in 1 crazy currency, one person puts in $1 US, and now we're putting them into UST. So we have 2 USTs. The US dollar one goes up by 10%, but Anchor gave us 20%, so we're fine. We're able to give them their coupon of 10% on their US dollar. They're happy. The guy in the crazy currency, he says, holy smokes, my currency had 10,000% interest this year. So let me go back and redeem my crazy currency. And we say, all right, no problem whatsoever. We're going to take our UST that went up by 20%, and we're going to take 10% of it, and we're going to have $1.10 of regular dollars. We're going to convert them to regular dollars, and we're going to convert them to 10 billion. At the new exchange rate is 10 trillion crazies equals $1 US. So we're able to give him back 10, the 100,000 crazies he needs.
So
the exchange rate change.
Placing the risk, and the risk again is really on the dollar relationship and making. Okay, so then I'm happy. I think this is great. I think we can go with this. I still think that the SEEDS Commons has a treasury, so we can say that we're solvent and we're sitting on that and just using the interest to begin with. Once we've built trust, then I think we can, and we have to build these tools anyway to have the mint-burn relationship. Then I think we can go into fractional reserve or algorithmic backing. So US Terra is algorithmic backing. There's no treasury. Well, they're starting to have a treasury, which, they kind of went the opposite direction. is they went full algorithmic, then we'll build a treasury over time to build confidence. So that's kind of what they're doing. I'm saying we go full backing, build that confidence, and then we can reverse it or reduce the reserve ratio over time, should we want to do that. But I
think
really loved the institutional pitch that we're putting together in our different groups to say, hey, this is capital preserved way of being able to show up and support this ecosystem. Extremely low risk. Why, an algorithmic currency is extremely high risk and it has higher returns, and that's fine for those ecosystems. I'm saying to start, let's do capital preserved, low risk, put your money here. We're just going to use the excess inflation or the excess interest to do operations. And we start it that way for Horizon now.
This is is largely kind of what the crypto for 100% was about.
Exactly.
Was to say, we're talking to people who want to have capital preservation. You've just changed it from capital preservation to inflation offset. It's just the same thing. They want to preserve their capital. And we're saying, you want to preserve your capital, that's great. We will help you because we're clever. We'll help you preserve your capital, but you're going to pay us a fee. And that fee is anything that we can earn over your capital is our fee.
We don't even say that. That's not a fee because they didn't earn it and they didn't have to pay it. All we say is we're going to offset inflation.
And no, I understand. But
let's not even call it a fee. We're going to offset inflation. And this contribution is helping fund all of these great things happening in the world.
Right. Yes, the language is important, but see, under the hood, if you set up a mutual fund or a hedge fund that says, investors put your money in, we're going to offset inflation. That's the purpose of our fund, and we are going to do our best, and you're going to get back as good as we can do. If we exceed inflation, it's yours. But if we put into the management agreement, we get 20% of the profits. That's possible. Lots of hedge funds do that. Some of them have a management fee. We get 1% of the core assets plus 35% of the profits. Any hedge fund can do anything that they want, but they're only working with accredited investors. And they have a billion lawyers and all the documents in the world, and they could even say quite clearly, we take 0% management fee. And our fee of any earnings that we get, you take all the losses if they're losses, but our fee is everything in excess of the published CPI or whatever inflation index we collectively agree. So if we say anything along these lines, it looks and smells and feels an awful lot just like a hedge fund. And we are issuing a constant currency mutual fund without any documentation, without knowing anything about the investors. That's why I really think that when we say we're going to have a treasury, we're becoming the GLD, fund. Do you really have all that money sitting in the?
This is what I find is a disgusting irony. And tell me if I'm wrong here. Is you're saying let's try to avoid this because there's legal restrictions, but ironically, then if those legal restrictions are meant to protect people, then what we're doing is we say we have to make something more risky and more dangerous because it's illegal to make something less risky.
No. It's all about the communication and the guarantees.
Sure.
But if what we say is that when you buy L1 market seeds, you're investing into this ecosystem that's being created, and that our anticipation is that L1 market seed is going to mimic the value that's being created. And we're going to have a utility of it in that you can use your L1 market. If you happen to want to use your L1 market seeds on exchanges with your friends and Telos and all that other stuff, that's great. If you want to use them to buy tomatoes, that's great. What we're saying is that the utility is the ability to convert it into these C seeds and also the ability to convert it into the seeds index. That's the utility that we're building into the SEEDS token. The fact that if you want to say, well, is this ecosystem healthy? Well, do you believe the videos coming out of all of the communities? I don't know. Maybe they were all staged. What are you willing to believe in? And if we say, you know what we're going to do for strength in our overall belief systems, that we're going to have a wallet that is publicly visible where you can see our treasury assets. The treasury assets are the things that are giving strength. But the reality is that you can't cash out. All right, When you cash out, all of this is we want to make the user experience trivially simple. But when you cash out your USD, your constant, in my brain, what's happening is it's converting to market seeds at the current mint burn rate. Then those market seeds are being sold to get back to US dollars.
All right, so then this is what I think the commas can do. So instead of holding on to a treasury and parking it, then part of the money that we're bringing in, some of it is going to UST to earn 20%, but other is going to that bridge you're talking about. So we, the commons.
Which bridge?
Well, the commons is going to need to establish a bridge, which is going to provide liquidity to be able to cash out. So the commons could actually be capitalizing a bridge that goes from, you know, market seeds to USDC, for example, for people to be able.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, totally. What that means,
what we're doing is we're backing it up by the money that's coming in. Then we're
absolutely
that bridge, and then the commons can simultaneously earn the trading fees for holding that bridge.
Correct. That what you're saying is that in price discovery land of market seeds against USDC, market seeds against Telos, in price discovery land
of that pool is what the guarantee is. So instead of the guarantee being we have a treasury, we're sitting on money, the guarantee is there's $100 million in this pool.
Absolutely. So I agree with that. I agree with that. They may not be a pool. They are really more buy orders.
I fixed it here for you. Hold on. Not fixed it. I improved it. So here's this new and improved map. Where did it go? Never mind. I have too many tabs. Bear with me as I find out where it ran off to. Oh, here it is. Okay. So I changed this. So the seeds commons, I made it very clear, you know, bridges and treasury. So treasury being, you know, putting it at 20% anchor or whatever else we can find that's more clever than that. And the bridge, but maybe we call this a pool. Whatever word is the most effective here. But the pool is what's providing liquidity to give that guarantee. And we need to make sure that there's always more liquidity there, or at least at some effective reserve ratio of how many constant currencies are in circulation. Correct. Because if you ever reach a point where there's more constant currencies than there is in this pool of value, then we're insolvent. No, that's okay, because that's a reserve ratio. We could be at like 120%, 100%. As long as there's no bank run, we're happy. You know, we're able to hit the daily ratio. But if we ever get to like 10 to 1 or anything like that, then we're becoming more and more
in trouble.
So that's
then you're the Ohm protocol, Olympus. So what I would say is that when I use the word liquidity pool, I'm talking about a pair. So market seed, USDC.
Market seeds. So if we're doing things in dollars, we have to stay in dollar land, because that's what's going to keep the relationships happy. So the pool has to be a dollar to market seeds, and that's the pool that the commons is capitalizing.
I'd prefer it to be on a platform where it's a buy order, because if you're a pool, then you're selling.
Well, we're doing the pool on both sides. Okay, let me get.
We have a market on buyseeds.earth, which is a sell only market.
Sure.
I think that we want to be a buy only market on the exchange, on swap.seeds.money. See, Bancor is only about two-sided pools.
Sure.
But there are newer things that are about both pools and limit orders. We want limit orders. We want to intentionally be minting L1 seeds for the purpose of selling them over here. Let's say that the price goes down on the market world. That's because there weren't any buyers. And let's say the price goes down a lot, so it's not 10 cents, but it's 7 cents or 3 cents.
So what you're then saying is we just do market orders and we put up a huge buy wall at whatever price we want to put it at, and we just sit there with a buy order. Why I'm not a fan of that is because when we're putting it into a pool, we're earning trading fees. People are swapping in and out, and you're sitting there and your capital is being productive. If we're sitting in there in just a limit order, it's just sitting there. It's not doing anything. It's not earning trading fees. It's not.
When it gets filled, when it's getting filled below the bid or at the bid, because it becomes the new bid. Buying on the bid and selling on the offer is the same thing as trading fees.
I guess Nudex does that too, right? And And the one providing the capital in Nudex gets the fee, right? So if you put up the order, you're getting the fee.
It can be done in a variety of ways, but
Anyway,
the bid-ask spread
okay.
is
So
the
you're
fee.
saying, okay, all right. So you're saying a one-sided market where we put the buy orders. Okay.
Correct. And again, this all falls into treasury management and health of the whole ecosystem. But the problem is that when you're adding liquidity to a pool, you're saying I'm willing to buy slightly below here and sell slightly above here.
Maybe my last point is instead of having this two, doesn't it actually just make sense to put the buy seeds and the sell seeds, which we're separating right now, actually into the same pool?
Into the same website interface?
Well, in the literal same pool. So the seeds commons, it's selling the seeds it wants by adding them to the pool. And when it's getting
because they have to add it with a pair with a partnership.
You don't have to. No.
Another token.
Because as long as there's currency in there, you could do one-sided. And what that looks like is you sell half and then you add.
Yeah, that's the whole point, is you have to remove liquidity to add.
Kind of.
You're not changing anything. You're just changing the price at which you're putting the
value
liquidity
is always going up. You're changing the ratio and the pricing, but that's
no, the total value didn't change at all. If I create tokens out of thin air with the intention of putting them in a pool, and then I sell half of them at the pool to get the partner token, the price goes down. I now put them both in there. The total value in the pool is the same, unchanged. The price is just lower.
I actually disagree, because you're adding more tokens. So even though the price did go down, it doesn't go down.
The amount of extra tokens you're adding is equal to the change. They're identical.
Are they?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I see a lot of pools go up in total value locked anytime I'm adding one-sided liquidity, and it happens. You know?
No, it does. It's just a delay in their computation. It's not real.
Okay. All right.
So, but you do make an interesting point. When we put on buyseeds.earth a one-sided market saying, if you buy seeds here, you are in fact giving that money to the Seeds Commons to steward in its overall management of its treasury and allocation of resources. That's what you're doing. Whereas if you go and you buy it from the liquidity pool, you're just buying it from somebody else who already has it. No, which is a very important thing.
This is fair. And then we set up, and then we just take some of the money that we're raising and we set up buy orders. And then the more we can capitalize that buy order wall, the better we are. And we can be flexible with where we put that buy order wall, and we can change it around and blah, blah, blah. So you're saying that gives us the freedom. We can do that. Then I guess the last thing to agree on is, what exchange do we use to do this? Where are we doing this? So
I saw the Zapify or whatever it was called, Zappily or whatever.
Yeah, Zap Finance.
Zap Finance. I thought that was kind of cool. I don't know. The liquidity pools, they're very traditional DeFi space. But I don't know that they, at least right now, are supporting one-sided orders. We know that centralized exchanges support one-sided orders. We know that the Prism protocol says that they're coming soon to support one-sided orders, but we need to ask, since we're in the Telos ecosystem, we need to find out. We know Nudex supports one-sided orders, and they're in the Telos ecosystem. So if we, and Nudex, when we put up our Seeds Telos pair in Nudex, is Nudex still running? I mean, is there somebody behind it? Like there's a programming team?
I can't speak to that, but I know I just used it 2 days ago to get some Telos.
With what?
EOS.
With EOS, okay. So you can get
with Zappy Finance as well.
Huh? You can exchange EOS for Telos on T-swaps as well. So there's numerous places to exchange it. I haven't looked at Nudex in a while, but if Nudex's UI is reasonably familiar to people that are traders, but the thing is that we want it. If somebody wants to buy seeds, there is nothing better than buyseeds.earth, because they're a regular everyday person. And if somebody wants to sell seeds, you suggested the idea that there's a sell seeds.earth as well. That's what maybe you didn't think that you were saying that, but that's what I heard. So if there's a sell seeds.earth and a buy seeds.earth, When they sell seeds, what do they get? See, it's really easy when they buy seeds because they're putting the thing in, and we say we support Bitcoin and we support EOS. That's all we support right now. Maybe we'll turn back in support for Telos now that it has a pretty stable, more stable market. But when they put their stuff in there, like if they're putting their credit card, because they're thinking they're putting in US dollars, by the time that the credit card charges the fee, they convert it to Bitcoin, the Bitcoin comes over to us, we look at an oracle and say what the price of Bitcoin is, turn it back into US dollars, and then issue them that amount of seeds. It could be anything, you know, and it can be really confusing.
And all those fees mean there's less value that came in than we can give them back.
Correct.
So you can't actually go and buy seeds to sell seeds and get the same value and be happy because all the
right. But if people say, if we tell people, look, you know, there's huge number of fees that are going around in this whole place, and it's sad, but it is the reality. It is true. And if we say, look, you can
with EOS and Telos, then there's no fees.
Yeah, but how did they get their EOS? You're just offloading to some earlier point in time.
We're talking about the need for peer swaps. We've been working on that, all right?
Right. And so, and in the peer swaps, there'll be a little bit of a transaction fee there as well. But
not necessarily, and people can do it for free. But anyway,
no, I'm talking about the Chariot Pay transaction fee.
Oh,
yeah. So buy seeds is really easy for the common man, ignoring the fees. And if they happen to be fee sensitive and efficient, then they'll find the most graceful way through whatever Coinbase or Kraken or whatever to get EOS at the best right. You know, they need to figure that out. But we live in the crypto space, and if they want to buy seeds, there's a journey from their regular US dollars to seeds. So if they think that they're giving us $1,000 and they're 10 cents each, and they should thus get exactly 100 seeds, we need the UI to be really kind of like pleasant for them, so that that's fine. But if now they have seeds, but they're just regular everyday people, and now they want to sell seeds to get back to US dollars, again, they can go through the peer-to-peer and Chariot Pay and so forth, and they're going to find they just gave $1,000 and they just got back $950 or maybe $900 if they swap them back the same day. It's the same thing as going to Europe and going to the airport exchange and then saying, oh, I got to go back to the United States, and going back to the airport exchange. Those Western Union folks, they don't care. They're going to take their bid-ask spread and those fees. So we will, over time, through Chariot Pay and other kinds of stuff, make this easier. But do we want to have a sell seeds.earth? Because if we say, look, we're going to put a buy wall over in the market seed world, if we put a buy wall in the market seed world, it's only visible to people that know how to use DeFi and know how to use new DEX and know how to use stuff. It's not visible. It's not easy. But if we give people an easy exit for the ecosystem in a sell seeds.earth, that to me is a mistake. I think what the answer is that the Seeds Commons is a perpetual buyer on the peer-to-peer swap, because we're not building this alternative mechanism where we're amplifying the reliability of the peer-to-peer swap.
So then that could be great. Then that's just what we do, is the buy wall that the commons can put up is in peer swaps.
Yeah, I like it.
Integrating with Chariot payments and doing that route. And we say, okay, if you want to exit, this is the route to exit. And we do it peer-to-peer, fully decentralized.
I'm still holding on to the user experience, what we just said, but I'm still holding on to the idea that when somebody buys their seeds from the Seeds Commons and they say, I'm so happy that I'm supporting the Seeds Commons, and then they say at the exact same time in the user experience, you know, maybe it says, you know, when you buy your seeds, you know, would you like to convert them to constant seeds? You know, boom, they get converted. Or they maybe that whole question of conversion disappears and there's a UI, buy constant seeds, buy market seeds, whatever it is. It's really easy. But I still have in my head, right or wrong, that the buying of constant seeds has to have impact to the market, meaning that they have to be acquiring market seeds. It's buy pressure in the market seeds It's supporting the price discovery process in the market seeds, and then it's converting into the constant seeds. You've suggested that I could be thinking about this, at least in Horizon Zero, as the direct path to the buying of constant seeds. And I'm saying I'm okay with the direct path of buying to the constant seeds. The question is what is the price? So tell me what you think about this. I'm a person that has $1,000, and I say I'm going to go and buy my constant seeds. And so somehow I give that $1,000. And now a month passes, and the United States has had 1% interest in that month. And they press a button and they say, I'd like to exit my constant seeds. Do you believe they're getting $1,010 or 1% more back in US dollars?
Right.
So it's a frictionless thing.
Right. In my world.
How do we fund that? How do we support that?
We take their $1,000, we put it into Terra at 20%. And when they
but we didn't get $1,000 from them because there were fees in the journey from their $1,000 in their checking account before whatever number of things that we got.
Well, then I put that right at the front. Then their fees they pay and the amount they get in is what they put in. So that should be happening at the front. And the buy seeds, it already is. It says how much they're going to get minus the fees. So they pay for the fees to come in.
All right, good. All right, so
they're putting in $1,000. Maybe they actually had to pay $1,005 or whatever had to have been paid. So that's the frictionless environment in my world.
Okay, so now they have.
Hold on. And
same on the exit.
I have to go. I think we'd be missing an opportunity if we did the market buy seeds in Horizon Zero. That's a cool story to tell. That's hey, there's a bunch of new demand that's going to be coming on. Like there's a whole transition point that we could really like benefit from if that existed in Horizon 1 or 2. So if it started off with a direct relationship, really simple, and the Commons has that, we're earning 20%, you can buy about whatever. Like we start off that way. And then when we get into Horizon 1 or 2, we actually shift that over to where you are market buying seeds. But first we need to establish seeds liquidity before we could do that. And then seeds come in and start trading. So we need all the liquidity pools available for that flow to happen. We need there to be a little bit more liquidity. We need to go through this process of Genesis seeds to market seeds and start actually bringing new currency into circulation. Like there's so many steps that need to be taken before that flow actually makes sense. And again, it's an opportunity for it's just hype. It's market cycle stuff. It's this next thing is coming, which is going to have more demand for this currency. It's all storytelling that we need to also be doing as an ecosystem. So putting all of our benefit all up front is just not good business logic. All
right, so let's add
that is a good idea too.
So I have a question. I want to complete the other thing. So if I have $100 and I'm going to buy some constant seeds, then I would see that I just had to pay $105 to get $100 worth of constant seeds, because naturally you're used to paying a transaction fee to Visa and stuff like that. So the entry has some friction, but you're saying charge it to the buyer upfront, clearly displayed, all that kind of stuff. That's 100%.
Fine. You say these are the fees. Yeah. Unfortunately, we're not taking them. This is MoonPay's fee or whatever. Like this is just the way it is.
That's fine. Now you go and you want to sell the seeds. If you want to sell your constant seeds, some time has passed and there's been some inflation that's happened, and you go to sell the seeds. They're your constant seeds. Then is there also a displayed, you don't get the full amount. We've offset the inflation, but you have a fee to exit.
Sure, whatever those fees are that we have to do. Maybe the Commons also introduces its own exit fee into it. But absolutely, if there's fees and there's anything that's not the full story, let's just display that right up front. Some of them are going to be fixed, which then also creates an incentive to hold on to it longer, so that the interest you earned is above the fixed fees, so that creates an incentive to not sit there every day and, go in and out or whatever. But unfortunately, until we can get rid of those fees, they're there. Let's display them up front.
It is what it is. All right. So now let's look at what the ecosystem is. If Horizon Zero doesn't include market seeds, and we're saying that it's premature to really kind of, we'll of course tell the whole story, but it's not ready, whatever. But we want to have funding coming in. So let's say that we get $1 million put into constant seeds. and that $1 million comes in, and maybe the fees are a few $100, whatever. You got to leave.
Yes, this was fantastic. It was probably too long for most people to listen anyway, so it's probably
Yeah.
good to cut this off. I actually think we're basically there. I think you're just reiterating what we were already on the same page are, which is fantastic. So then kind of in closing, and then I want to hear you close, and then I've got to go, is there's two ways to come into the commons. Market buying seeds, the layer 1 seeds, and that gives you the potential to maybe get 10x if we go from 10 cents to $1, like whatever, but it also could go from 10 cents to 5 cents, like high risk, high reward, you're into that world. Or again, directly from the commons, you're buying constant seeds, which has these fees on coming in and on coming out, and then you're offsetting inflation and the excess is being used to fund the commons. And then the commons can use both pools of capital to then start setting up the pools and the treasury and everything else the ecosystem needs in order to have this Horizon 2 you're talking about, where we have a lot better flows of value throughout the whole ecosystem. So that's kind of the maturation phase. Are we aligned there, / whatever reflections you have, and then we'll close out.
Yep. I'm good with that. I'm aligned with that. And I think that we made a long journey today. So thank you.
Yeah, but it's clear now. Like I'm seeing it coming together, and this is freaking, it's beautiful and it's coherent, and I'm loving this kind of middle way we keep finding. So this is great. So I had a blast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk soon.
All right. Adios.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks.